Calling to order the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees on April 28, 2022. The time is now 4:04 p.m. Please call the roll.
President Herrera,
Here.
Vice President Chavez.
Here.
Clerk Cortese,
Here.
Member Lane,
Here.
Member Doe.
Here.
Thank you. And are there any members of the public who would like to provide public comment to the board on a closed session agenda item at this time?
There are none. There are none.
Okay, there are none that are signed up or stepping forward. Therefore, we will be recessing to executive session and returning at 6 p.m. for the public session. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the meeting of the Board of Trustees, April 28, 2022. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, visible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, welcome to the meeting of the Board of Trustees. For members of the public who wish to address the board, you may raise your hand virtually in Zoom to request to speak and offer comment in real time. In-person public commentators will be allowed entry 3 speakers at a time in the boardroom. Upon conclusion of a speaker's public comment on the agenda item, the speaker must exit the boardroom. You may also submit your public comment online by accessing the form on the district's home page, which is at www.esuhsd.org, or the link on the agenda. Please reference the agenda item number in your written comment and limit your written comments to no more than 1,000 characters in length. Public comment submitted online will be read into the record. Please note that all meetings are recorded. All regular and special meetings of the Board of Trustees and board study sessions are streamed live on meeting nights and are also available for viewing the day after the meeting by accessing the district's YouTube channel listed on the district's webpage at www.esuhsd.org under the Quick Links section. The board is not able to respond to items that are not on the agenda or to any personnel issues. Your comment will be read into the record and will be directed to the superintendent and/or the appropriate staff member for response. Interpretation of this meeting in Spanish and Vietnamese can be heard by accessing the link and following the instructions shown on the agenda and the district's website. I'll also add that we have clocks on the wall, front and back. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes. With the exception of the presidents of the bargaining units that are accorded 5 minutes because they're speaking widely for their bargaining units. Welcome. We appreciate that you're here, and we're going to proceed with our agenda, which would take us then to item 5, which is adoption of the agenda. And the way we handle it is if there's anything that is going to be changed, now's the time to speak in terms of eliminating items. Otherwise, we will proceed per the published agenda under number 8. We're under number 5 right now, but under section 8 of the agenda, we will also make decisions on order of the order. Okay. Moving on to board special recognitions.
Before that, Board President, excuse me, the administration is asking that we remove item 1506 from tonight's agenda.
Design build request for proposal. We will eliminate that one. No, your item comes up under section 8. And then no special board recognitions scheduled today. And then student board liaison, and we have today, we have Paula.
Paula's not here tonight. Representing the Student Governing Board will be Angela Nguyen.
Angela Nguyen, this is your time to give the report from the Student Governing Board representative. I believe you're online.
Yes, I'm going to be speaking online today on behalf of Paula.
Your audio is not that clear, at least to me.
Can you hear me now? Hello.
Yeah, well, go ahead. We'll see if we can hear you well.
So for Student Governing Board, lately we have been talking about the Title IX education and improving sex ed education in general for all of high school students. Because right now, as students don't feel seen and want to be in a school space that prioritizes what we need and want. I know that there have been some groups meeting around discussing these policies. We also opened up student assembly applications across the school district, and they'll be closing on May 5th. And I believe that the email has been sent out to everyone on every school campus because we want to reach every class in order to have a representative on every level. And we are also in the process of rewriting our bylaws.
Did that conclude your report?
Yes, that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much. And feel free to stay through the whole meeting or attend to other needs that you have. Appreciate your presence today. Sorry? Yeah, right. Okay, so section 8 is special order of business operational items for discussion and or action. And I believe at this point, Vice President Chavez has a request.
Yes, I'd like to pull item number 6 from 18.07. I'd like to recuse myself because I work for Teach for America. And if we can put that above 8.02, and I can walk out.
Item 18.07 is ratify approved memorandum of understanding brought forward by the business office, and included in that is one that directly affects you because you work for the organization. So you're going to recuse yourself and also leave the room while we take action on this item. We're going to consider it now.
Yeah.
Under section 8, prior to proceeding with section 8 items. Members of the board and business office, if there's anyone, we don't have a business person here, but anyone wanted to make any comment on the memorandum of understanding under item 18.07, which is normally part of the consent calendar. And if not, then a motion is in order for approving as recommended by the administration under 18.07. Ratify approved memorandum of understanding.
This is a consent calendar item, which is
And we
something
pulled
that's
it.
of a routine nature, and we've pulled it because there is a conflict of interest with one of our board members. We want to be very transparent that she's not participating in anything that she benefits from. So that's why we're pulling this item, but it's a routine item, and so I'll move to approve.
Moved by Cortese, seconded by Lay. If there's no further discussion, all in favor of approving memorandum of understanding, including the item that affects Vice President Chavez, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? It is approved unanimously. And someone please advise Vice President Chavez you can enter the room again. Then now continuing in section 8 of the agenda, the superintendent, item 8.02, presentation, discussion, and or action regarding voter survey results for potential general obligation bond for 2022 election ballot, Mr. Superintendent.
So last night we held the Citizen Bond Oversight Committee, and there was a review of our processes and programs, and found 0 audit exceptions, which was great work. But we also got to see a number of the projects that are up for approval this evening, as well as the work that's going forward at many of our sites. And so all of this benefits our community by way of the bond. And so tonight we'll be hearing a presentation from Mr. Dale Scott regarding some surveying that we did regarding the possibility of going to the voters in November and asking that with not an increase in taxes, perhaps the opportunity to extend a bond so that we can continue to develop our schools and our facilities and programs. And so what we have tonight is Dale Scott with us, is here to talk about the language of that potential bond and the survey, the polling that was done in relationship to the language of that bond for your consideration. We will not be taking action this evening. This will return at a later meeting, but this is tonight for you to get questions, whether it's methodology, language, results, what does it all mean? With us here tonight is Dale Scott.
Thank you. And I'll first check that everyone can hear me. Okay, good. Well, we're bringing up the presentation. This survey was conducted in April, just a few weeks ago. I'm going to be taking you through those results tonight. And I am waiting for the presentation to load.
As are we, and we can't wait for that blue line to make it all the way to the end of the screen.
Mr. Scott, while we're waiting, can I ask a question?
Please.
Who did you use for the polling?
The polling is a joint effort. The actual construction of the survey itself is done by our office. The collection of the data is done by a firm called Competitive Edge. They're a California-based firm. They're based in San Diego, but they work nationwide. And then the analysis of the survey is done in our office as well.
Thank you.
All right, let's turn to slide 2. This is obviously not part of the survey, but I did want to point out that we are not talking to your parents, we're not talking to your community, we are only talking to registered voters, and we are only polling those registered voters that we believe have a reasonable priority, a reasonable probability of voting in the November 2022 election. This shows on the right-hand side the demographics of your party registration, but more importantly, on the left-hand side, the voter turnout by type of election for Santa Clara County as a whole. Blue is presidential, light blue is the recall, gray is the gubernatorial. So turnout has increased over the years. I think it says something that in a gubernatorial recall that was the only item on the ballots, and Santa Clara County still had over 60% of its voters turning out. And I'm anticipating the turnout for the gubernatorial election to be somewhere between 14 and 18. Certainly not as good as the presidential election, but very solid. The methodology shown on slide 4. This survey was done, we completed 366 interviews. It was done by cell phones, by text, also by landline and email, and it was done in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. And what I think I do want to point out is at the bottom, the margin of error is about 5% either way. I'm going to take this slide out of order. This is a slide that we ask on demographics. It occurs at the end of the survey, but I think it's an important place to start. I know, as I'm assuming as board members, many of you many boards, they think of their constituents often as parents, but I think this is interesting. Do you have, or have you ever had any children or grandchildren, that's ever had or have now or have ever had, who attended or are now attending a school in the Eastside Union High School District? Now, it's a little skewed because it's a high school district and there are elementary feeders, I understand that, but still you have 62% of your probable voters answered no to this question. I mean, that is enormous. So what people are understanding, and we'll have a slide on how they get their information later, but what they get is from either the news or from friends or from district employees or from what they hear at the supermarket. And we got to be cognizant of when people say, we ask them a question, they say, I don't know. Many times they're telling the truth. They don't know because they just don't have any direct contact. Let's look at the next slide, which is also out of order, and that is how exactly they do get their information on slide 6. Again, at the end, we asked, how do you get information about the district? And you can see in the upper right-hand corner of this pie chart, 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock, friends, family, and district employees. That's understand. That's expected. That has continued to fall over time, however. Most of the information, almost all of the rest of the information comes from written form, internet news, local newspapers. District communications is very strong for this district. Even public meetings is very strong. So this is a district that absorbs news as opposed to just listening to news. Only 1/4 say they get it orally. Okay, let's start the survey itself. When the person is on the line or the person is being interviewed, there are a few warm-up questions that are given. These are mostly to make sure people understand that we are really interested in what their opinions are and that we're not trying to sell them something. We're not trying to get them to give us an internet number or whatever. This is a question, from what you know or what you've heard, how would you rate the quality of education provided by Eastside Union High School District? This has fallen a little bit over time, which given our current circumstances makes sense. You see a very large unsure group. That makes sense. We have a lot of people that don't have children. Still, this is actually pretty good from what I'm seeing around the state right now. You have the combination of good and excellent, a third, fair, almost a third, and relatively speaking, relative to the other districts we're working with around the state, a fairly low poor, because this is an easy question to punt on. As is the next question on slide 8, which is the fiscal responsibility of the district. Actually, again, you would expect a very large unsure, that makes sense, but a fairly good group of excellent and good, not quite a third, about a fourth, less than a fourth in there, but it's a good, strong number, especially when you compare it with the fourth. And this is an easy question to ding anybody on to say, oh no, it's terrible. And you don't have that here. Okay, we then asked 2, I think, important questions that are attitudinal. Do you agree or disagree? Eastside Public Schools are our community's most important asset and should be our #1 priority. This was asked of all high probability voters. 85% agree, which is startling when you think about 85% of voters agreeing on anything in today, 85%, and a very, very small number of disagree or don't know. We have the same response on the next slide when we ask the question about housing values. Do you agree or disagree that quality schools increase property values? 86% agree. And this has been consistent, by the way. I went back and looked at some of the older polls that we've done in the district, and this has not fallen off. Okay, so now when we have the person's attention, we read them the ballot language. I need to just stop here for a second and explain one piece. We actually did in this survey what's called a split sample. Some of you are, I'm sure, familiar with that. We ask half of the voters one question having to do with the ballot, reading them one ballot language, and then you'll see on the next page a second question, a different question. The first people, the first group, or group A, was asked about, with no increase in estimated taxes, should Eastside Union High School District's bond measure 2, and then we go through a number of projects. And you can see in the middle that we list every high school. Almost, I think we probably got most of them in there. Remember that this has a 75-word limit, so we're a little constrained in this and we're trying to make it work. This has been done in your district for many years. I think it was actually Joe Cotto who originally requested this. And I think it's a reasonable request because you have 62% of the voters that don't have children in the school district. How do they know what school you're talking about? East Side Union High School Districts are rather amorphous concept to many of them. So in this case, we read them the ballot, the actual ballot measure that we believe would be. This doesn't have to be the final. This is something that closely approximates. When they're asked how would they vote, would you vote yes or no, they then get a prompt after that from the listener and from the poll that says, would that be a strong yes or would that be leaning yes? And that's why you see that lower number. But you put those two together in this first question without any information, 65% of the voters said yes. The second version of this on page 12, the schools were left out. Now, why did I do this? I did this because you only get 75 words in this ballot measure. Of that 75 words, a good 50% plus is language that is required by the state. You can see down below in the last second half, bonds with legal rates, projected levies of 3 cents, annual audits, independent oversight, all of that is required. And so I wanted to see if taking those names out would have a substantial difference, allowing us to then put something else in that may be more important. And there was actually not a big change. This was 43%, much stronger on the strong yes, 49% compared to 57%. So by and large, I think those school names are good, but I think there's something that can be, if necessary, if the word count gets in our way, we can move them away. Going into the next part of the survey, and this has been reordered for your benefit, we asked people a series of questions which are rotated, so they don't always come in the same order for every respondent. About if you knew, for example, let's look in the middle, if you knew that the bond funds would be used to renovate science labs, would you be more likely to vote or less likely to vote? These have been ranked for your benefit. You see the dark blue, more likely. You see the light blue, this is where the person says, this wouldn't make a difference to me, but they're already a yes voter. So I think realistically, you have to think of those two together. They're either going to make it more likely or it's not going to affect their yes vote. The number one, no surprise, I think, the number one project is to modernize and expand career and technical education programs and facilities. That comes in at 80% more likely or no difference. The second highest response, I think, is more about where we are in today's world. That was if you know that the funds would be spent locally and could not be taken by the state and spent elsewhere. And you can see that is right up at the top, even with the top one. This is consistent right now across the state. I'm seeing this regardless of region, regardless of the demographics of the district, regardless of the party affiliations. It is by far one of the strongest statements that we're seeing right now, given what's going on. All of the other projects, almost all of the other projects also score very well, but those are the top two, the third being renovate science labs, qualifying for state funds, technology upgrades, because this is going to have a technology component. They're all right up there near 80%. If we could go to the next page, please. They really don't fall off much. As we get down to removing hazardous materials from school grounds, there's a little bit of slide off, but stem cells, student access to computers, replace electrical wiring, again, all in the 70% range. Next slide, please. Again, these are all strong. They now dropping a little below 70, but that's still very good. Restrooms, ADA, alarms, plumbing, et cetera, et cetera. Next slide, please. And then in the end, we begin to see some of the some of the projects do begin to drop below that 55% threshold when we put them together, the most obvious being at the bottom, renovate athletic facilities, and construction of new classrooms gets pretty close to that. But these are all strongly supported projects. Everything that the administration asked us to test tests very well, with the exception of the renovation of athletic facilities. Now, there's another component of these bond issues that you see on this slide. The law requires that we disclose to voters what the cost will be on an assessed valuation basis. And it can either be described in cents per $100 or dollars per $100,000. So it's an anomaly of the code. Now, in fact, these are relatively the same numbers. 3 cents per $100 and $30 per 100,000 is the same number. We always ask this question in all surveys to determine, does the one way work better than the other? And I have yet to figure out which works better in which district. In some districts, there's no difference. In some districts, it's dollars per 100. In this district, it happens to be cents per $100. And this is just a way to guide us to how to get people to better understand what you're trying to do. In addition, we have to disclose to them how long the bond will be outstanding. We can either say that as the number of years, as you can see, 28 years, or it'll be extended but not increase the current rate through 2050. Again, they're the same, but there really is no difference between the two groups. So then after they have all the information, they've been told the dollar amount, they've been told the term, we then come back and ask them if they want to change their vote. This is, again, is the first group where the schools were listed, and that is actually goes up when we put those two together from 65% to 73%, yes, and lean yes, extraordinarily high. And slide 20. This is the group that didn't have the schools. It goes up even farther from 63% to 79% yes and lean yes, 69% a hard yes. So these are quite extraordinary numbers. And I think it would be appropriate to ask, and I'll set up the question, well, how accurate are these to be thought of? We've done a fair amount of survey research for the district. And so at the superintendent's request, I went back and I looked at those polls, and this is what the last 4 polls have shown. So remember, we had a pre-question, the question before we had information. That's the light gray. We had the question after the information was given. That's the dark gray. And then we had the actual results. And you can see in every one of those 4 elections, starting in 2008, we were right in between, with the exception of the 2008, which was slightly above, right in between the surveys before information and after information, and well within the margin of error. At the far right, you can see the comparison of the measure that we're looking at in this poll before information and after information. So it's pretty consistent, frankly, than what has happened in the past. Now, as elected officials, you know that not all voters are necessarily the same. There are some people that vote in every measure on every ballot. There are some people that vote only occasionally. And I like to look at those in different groups, dividing them up between what we call the very reliable voter. Those are the voters that have voted in the last 4 out of 4 or 3 out of 4. Oh, I'm sorry, 3 out of 3 elections on the far left-hand side. And then the very unreliable voters on the right-hand side, they've voted at 1 out of the last 4 or 1 out of the last 3 elections. And then those people in the middle, how do they respond to these questions of whether you would be in favor, yes, or in favor, or not in favor of the bond? This would happen to be the measure where the schools were listed. And what I'm really looking at is the combination of the very reliable and the reliable. That's not to say that the unreliable voter, you're going to get some of those people show up, just not as many as the very reliable and the reliable. And those are still well over the 55% mark, both very reliable and reliable. That is also the case on slide 23 when we have the ballot language, which does not include the school names. All of these, again, are much stronger than I had anticipated and well over 55%. Now I'm going to change gears here into timing, but I want to stop at that point and at this point and ask if there are any questions about the survey, anything you'd like me to go back over before we talk about the next step and timetable.
I'll just offer the comment that it makes me nervous that there would be a possibility of not listing the schools on the ballot measure. Because at least in my experience, that has always made enough of a difference in community response. But your poll shows that it's not much of a difference. And I find it peculiar. It makes me a little nervous, but you're the expert here.
No, instinctively, I agree with you. And I was surprised to see that. I was surprised to see that closeness of the data. But it's worked in the past, and I guess it's hard for me to imagine why we should change it going forward, given the strength of the polling. But again, the state continues to put in more language into those where our real estate, available real estate, and designing that language is shrinking, and we may just run out of room at a certain point and have to do something else.
Maybe we'd have to abbreviate one of the sites, or God forbid, they don't make it into the ballot language, but.
Well, under the election code, geographic names are treated as one word. So even if it's Martha G. Washington High School, that's just treated as one word.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So overall, what I'm getting is that as in prior bond measures, our community is remarkably supportive and responsive. And we continue to have that good fortune according to this data.
I agree.
So members of the board, if there are no other comments at this time or questions, why don't you complete your presentation? Mr. Scott.
I believe there was a question.
Vaughn and me.
Oh, no.
I want to ask you that how many people that in your survey, particular that how many percentages are ethnic minority, like a 1/3 of Latino community, or 1/3 Vietnamese, or 1/3 are non-Vietnamese and Latino?
That is a very good question, and I will have to get back to you on that. I don't have the data immediately available, but I will get it to you through the superintendent.
Okay, and another question I want to ask is most of the question that you asked, when you called the survey, they are most majority of the resident live in East Side.
These are only voters in the East Side Union High School District. Yes.
All right, and do they have any other question that the voter or resident asked the person who took the survey?
There's not a forum for them to respond to any question that's asked, because we're not trying to give information as much as we're trying to get opinions. So there may have been questions, but the people that are asking the questions are not prepared to give answers. And their response would be, "I'm sorry, I don't know that."
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you for your answer.
Members of the board.
Thank you for this, Scott. Few questions. What is the difference between slide 19 and 20? I didn't quite catch that. Yeah, 19.
Going to show. So the difference between those two slides is, remember, we had two groups. One group had ballot language with the districts with the high school names. One group had ballot language without the districts' names. So slide 19 is that group that had the districts, the schools listed. And slide 20 is the group that didn't have the schools listed. That's the only difference.
Where I expressed my discomfort.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Great. Another question. I don't know if this question is for you. If it's not for you, feel free to say it like Lorena, not me. I'm curious if you were aware of how many other bonds are happening, are going to be in the ballot in November. And does a specific number change these results, or like, what do we need to take into account when we have that information?
Wouldn't that apply to what bonds are going to be before our same voters?
I mean, same, if you
Our
want it,
electorate, the district's
yeah,
electorate?
we can think about it as like the primaries, but also I'm thinking about general election, like how many are going to be on the actual same ballot?
Mhm.
And like, what is the impact?
Well, let's start with the first part of the question. I don't know exactly. I do believe that there is some discussion of Alan Rock being on the ballot to do a reauthorization of an existing bond. That's kind of a different animal. Of your other feeders, of which we represent most, but not all, there is no discussion. But there are others that we don't represent, and I don't know. So that's the first part of the question. The second part of the question is one that often comes up, and I think it's a good question. In testing it in other places, you would instinctively think it would make a difference. But as we've tested it in different communities, we found that that's not really the case. And I think that does make some amount of sense. I think a person is either a supporter or not a supporter. Now, the third part of your question was, what do you need to be thinking about? And unfortunately, I don't think you're going to have that information. And that's what's the turnout going to be like in 2022? And that's anybody's guess.
And if there's no other comment, or Mr. Scott, if you could conclude your presentation.
Certainly. Next step would be the board to consider action on placing this on the ballot. We have suggested a board date of May 19th. Assuming the resolution is presented and is approved, we would then bring that resolution to the county. The cutoff date is August 5th. Actually, I think it's August 12th, but it's in the first week of August. And of course, election day. I have to get used to myself not saying election day because there's no longer election day. It should be election month. Election month ends on November 8th, and then the funds would be available starting in early 2023 if it's passed by the voters. And that concludes my report.
So there is a time consideration here that no later than May 19th, you said? There would need to be an approved resolution?
It could go later than that if necessary. I think that would be a good time to bring it, to give everybody time to put together the resolution. And then of course, there's also only a certain number of board meetings between now and the end of July.
So just speaking broadly, even theoretically, are there any downsides to proceeding with putting this on the ballot?
The only downside, which I think you're aware of, is if you lose, you will be responsible, excuse me, you would be responsible for the cost of putting it on the election from the county. I'm sorry, putting it on the ballot by the county. In a gubernatorial election, it'll be a large number, but not as significant it would be as if you put it on your own. Those costs are reimbursable out of bond proceeds if it passes, but if it doesn't, those funds would then be paid for by the district's general fund.
Why do we choose gubernatorial election instead of presidential election?
Two reasons. The first is that the presidential election is not until 2024 of November. And so you would not have access to any funding until at the earliest 2025, which is 3 years from now. So it is a very long wait. The second reason we discussed, I believe in the last meeting, which is the potential of maintaining that election for the possibility of a parcel tax being put on the ballot. No decision has obviously been made, no formal discussion has been had, but that is clearly the best potential date for the district to consider that at that time. And that is one of the main reasons this election is being considered.
So if we agree to move it forward, then the cost of survey will be absorbed to the whole cost for the bond measure. Am I correct?
The cost of the putting it on the ballot that is charged by the county. Yes.
Okay, county, okay. And one more question is, I mean, I know that my board colleagues already asked that any other district probably might have another bond measure, but because after the pandemic, so I was wondering, is a lot of question from the voter look into their pocket in terms of everything has been increased from gas, from food. So I don't know that it's maybe, I'm not sure it's at the right time that we're going to put this bond measure, you know, for this year or not. That's just the question that I've been asked from some of the, you know, family members. They've been, you know, are very concerned about everything has been increased, you know, after the pandemic. So I'm not sure that, you know, based on your survey, it's a good result, but I'm feel a little bit skeptical. You know, when people go out to vote and they look back and they say, well, they have to pay addition more. And, you know, so that's just my concern.
Mr. President, can I respond to that?
Yes, yes.
I think it's a good question. I think it's a very valid question. And we're all aware of what's been going on in the economy. There are two things to consider, however, as you're thinking that through. The first is that, remember, this has been, this measure that we're looking at has been specifically designed so that it will not increase the current tax rates. So we're not asking people to pay more. Now, to be fair, if it didn't pass, tax rates would go down, but it's being designed so they will continue to be at the level that they're at and not go up. The second, I think, somewhat more compelling issue to think about is, well, yes, it's true there is inflation, but if you wait to do the improvements in your schools, they're going to cost even more 2 years or 4 years from now. And so the inflationary impact is going to continue to be felt in other years just as much as it's being felt now until it gets under control, which I don't think is going to be in the short term. So while I see the understanding of the question, I understand people's concerns, I do think that there is mitigating information on that that should be considered as to the way we've designed this and the fact that it's not going to reduce the cost increases for future projects.
And I would imagine if there was that undercurrent in the community, in the electorate, we would have seen some sign of it in the polling results. And yet, you know, pretty strong polling results.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I remember in 2008, during the recession, which occurred right at the time of the election, we did not see the impacts in the polling or in the actual results in the 2008 elections. You would think you would. When we saw it, though, was 2 years later in the 2010 election, I think, where then people had lived with those results for a couple of years, and it really had impacted their lives. So right now, I think people are worried about it, but there's not as much as impact as there could be in the future.
So the random polling includes property owners and non-property owners who are voters. That's correct?
That is correct.
So actually a lot of potential voters here won't be affected either way because they don't own property.
And so how about seniors?
There is no legal ability to exempt seniors from a general obligation bond.
So exempt for those seniors
Yeah.
who own the home?
We can.
They will not be exempted.
Member Cortez.
So I just wanted to ask a clarifying question. On the slide 21 where you highlighted some of the bonds that we've had. One of those Measure I's is a tech bond, is that right?
That is correct.
So which, was it 12 or 14 that was the tech bond? It doesn't matter. One of them was. Okay.
Yeah, one of them was, yeah.
So and then that, I mean, just for the people who are on, that was a bond that was used to provide technology for the district, which pretty much saved us during COVID because we were able to provide one-to-one devices for our students. So that's been obviously very important. And I'm not sure that bond was also designed to have very short,
Maturities, right.
maturity. Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. When does that bond completely expend?
I believe there is one, that was the 2012, by the way, I was just reminded. I believe there is only one more of those available that is going to be issued next year, I believe it is.
So that's
And that-
something I think the board needs to consider. And that's something the board needs to consider because I understand that this bond measure that we are considering for November would include language around technology. Is that right?
That is correct.
I think that's important that we have that flexibility that we can, make sure that our students have access to, and our staff have access to, updated equipment.
Mr. Superintendent, what is the recommendation of the administration in terms of a vote and a timing for the vote?
So tonight, we're taking no action. Tonight on this item, it's just information only, exactly for you to ask those kind of questions and those kind of wonderings and other data or information that you would want us to get to some of the
Okay,
questions.
so it'll come back.
So right now, it is calendared to come back on May 19 for
Okay.
us to take action as to whether or not we need to
Very
choose
good.
to move forward or not.
That time we'll have the administration's recommendation as well. on the matter. Okay, thank you.
Can I request that when it comes back, that we have information about how much is remaining on our current bonds?
Certainly.
Sure.
Okay, that concludes item 8.02, and we're going to move on to item 8.03 on adopting resolution authorizing issuance of general obligation refunding bonds. Mr. Willingham. Oh, and Dale Scott.
Yes, so 8.02 was very much about the future and potentially going out to voters again. 8.03 is an action item. And where we'll be discussing about the issuance of sale of general obligation non-refunding bonds and for the purpose of refinancing. And we'll go through this presentation and you can ask once again the questions that you have. And I think there are questions about interest rates and good things like that. So we'll go ahead and have Mr. Dale Scott present
On 8.03, right?
8.03.
Okay.
All right, if we can get the presentation up for this one as well. Well, we got 2 to a page here. I'm not sure how that happened. Okay, well, let's just go one at a time. Let me blow it up a little bit. There we go. Mr. Superintendent, is it possible to increase the size? I think that would be very helpful. Thank you. So I want to give just a little background. The first is this is going to be a refinancing, proposed refinancing of an existing bond that is going to result in taxpayer savings. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. But first, I wanted you to see what the currently projected tax rates are for all of the bonds that have been passed by the voters of this district. Now, this assumes a tax rate per $100,000 of assessed valuation. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And it is assumes also that your assessed valuation continues to grow at 3.5%, which is low compared to where you've been. But as you can see, these rates are moving downward based on those assumptions. Now, one question that I often get is, well, what does that mean for the average taxpayer? And the answer is there is no average taxpayer. And I want to show you what I mean in the next slide, the top of page 2. And if you just bring it up just a little bit more in terms of the enlargement, I'd appreciate it. What this is a schematic that shows the assessed valuation of single family homes in $100,000 increments for your community. So even though the average single family home assessed valuation, as you can see at the first bullet, is almost $580,000, in fact, there is a wide variety and scope of assessed valuations. You have over 6,000 homeowners whose assessed valuation is actually under $100,000. And so even though we talk about, you can see in the third bullet, the median home sale price in your area, this is for the city of San Jose, not necessarily the district, is currently $1.5 million. That's not the average assessed valuation in your community. So when we talk about, for example, $100 per $100,000 of assessed valuation, if your home is assessed at $100,000, that's $100. If it's assessed at $500,000, that's $500 per year. And I want to make sure everybody had a sense of what those numbers are.
Bill,
And it-
just to clarify, this is because of Prop 13, right? Where,
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
nobody's house is worth under 100,000 today. I mean, but if they've been living there for 40 years, that's how that happens, right?
Or if their children are living there.
Or what?
Or if their children are living there,
Oh,
because you can transfer to your children under Prop
right,
13.
right. Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
So yeah, you have a very large number of homeowners, with homes assessed under $300,000 in your community. Very large. Let's look at the next slide, which I think is really fascinating. A question came up as, well, how much how do we save? And I know there's some discussion, gee, is this really worth it? This district, just since 2005, this board has taken actions which has produced over $67 million in taxpayer savings in the last 15 years. And you can see in the table on the right-hand side, some of those have been very large. There's a couple, and the interest rates really fell, $15 million. Some of them have been very small. Up at the beginning in 2007, there was one for $350,000. But I think the point of this is it really is cumulative. If you're adding those on and adding those on, and let's go to the next slide, slide 5. And you can see on this slide, these are all of the outstanding bonds series that the district has outstanding as of today. The most important column is on the far right-hand side, which shows the optional call date. That's the date in which the bond can be refinanced. And if you look down that, you have a tremendous number of bonds coming up for refinancing over the next 10 years as well. Some of them very large, some of them not so large, but each provides a benefit and will increase that cumulative number. So we have 2 in 23, 1 in 24, 2 in 25, 3 in 26, and we'll continue to keep track of those as we go along. This refinancing, however, does not produce those kind of large numbers. As you can see, and it's important to keep this in mind, on this financing, it is a refinancing of a refinancing. So we're doing it a second time. There are only 6 years left on this bond. So there's not a lot of room to get a lot of savings on this. And right now, we project that the savings is roughly $900,000. So the question, I think, legitimately needs to be asked, does this does this make sense? Well, if to get $900,000, certainly it makes sense, but will we do better to wait because of interest rates going up? So I asked our staff to look at that question. And let's go to the next slide. It's just a little bit in the weeds here, but let me tell you what this means. If rates, let's look at the middle column that says estimated savings. If rates did not change, if they stayed right where they are today, every year you wait, the savings is going to go down by a significant amount, because that's one less year we have to refinance until we get out to the fourth year, fifth year, and it goes away, and it would actually be uneconomical to refinance. The column on the right-hand side, estimated rate decrease to break even, is how much do current interest rates have to decrease from today in order to produce that savings that we talk about in this at this point in time of $916,000. 50 basis, half a percent, doable. But if rates drop 0.5% in a year, you're not going to make any more than you make today. But it's possible. Will they go up? Will they go less than that? Possible, but it's not going to be a big difference. If you waited 2 years, they would have to fall by over 1.5% from today, which is a big drop. And after that, it doesn't make any difference. So obviously, it is up to the board to decide whether it would make sense to go forward with this, but I don't think there's going to be much reason to assume that if you don't do this, it's going to be better for you in the future. It's a matter, do you want to try and log the close to $1 million or not? Again, it is not a huge savings, but cumulatively, this board has had an excellent job in the past of putting those savings up on the scoreboard for its taxpayers. Timing wise, with this, if the board passes this resolution tonight, we would immediately begin the process of the financing, talking to the rating agencies, posting the various documentation that needs to be posted for the market, and bringing it into the market somewhere in the last week of May, or possibly moving it into early June, depending on what happens with interest rates. And the bonds would close in early June. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or comments or concerns you may have.
Any members of the board, Member Cortese?
I'm going to ask Board President Herrera's question from earlier. What's the downside of doing this?
Is there a downside?
There's always a downside. What is it?
Oh yeah, sure. The downside is fairly straightforward. The downside is you do the refinancing and interest rates plummet afterwards. And you say, gosh, I wish we would have waited. Instead of having 900,000 in savings, we could have $1.8 million in savings. I mean, that's not exactly a downside, but that's the only real impact on the district, that your savings could possibly have been greater had you waited. I personally think that's unlikely, but that's a decision to be made by each board member.
But you're saying that if we wait, so if we wait, they need to go down in order for us to get the same benefit. Is that what you're? That's
That
what
is
you get
correct.
from this table. And
That
that
is
doesn't
correct.
seem to me like it's. I'm not an economist, but it doesn't seem to me like interest rates are likely to go down. I think they're trending back up again. Is that right?
Well, it's not a straight line either way. It's going to go up, it's going to go down a little bit, but right now it has been on an upward trajectory. There's no doubt about that. I think that I'm hopeful that in June, there's going to be a little bit of blip that we catch in the pricing of this. But the indications right now are not that it's not going to go back to where it was.
Thank you.
The members of the board, yes, Member Lay.
I think this time is very good opportunity because the interest rate will be increased, and we all know everyone has the house looking to the interest that they will not be able to refinance it if they don't take these opportunities. But my question for you, Scott, is with the saving 15,285. Those savings will go back to those projects, or where do they go?
They go to reduce the tax rate to the district's taxpayers, property owners within the district. So if
Okay,
you, if you can turn back to slide 6, please. So this is for this 2012 refunding. This is the current debt service that's being paid by taxpayers. And as you can see in that little blue box above, the estimated total tax rate savings for an average homeowner within your district would be approximately $5. Not a lot of money per person, but a lot of money across the entire district.
Okay, Vice President.
thank you.
On that, I see net savings of 5%. Is that what we would be getting here? Or what is the difference?
5% is a 5% net savings as a percentage of the refunded bonds. That is an indicator of how good of a deal it is. There's a general industry sense that when it starts getting down into the 3% range, it may not be worth proceeding. Personally, I'd like to see it over 5. Personally, I'd like to see it over 10, but that is not something that's going to affect you one way or the other.
Me too. I'd like to see it over 10. How does this compare to previous sales?
Oh, it's not as good because of interest rates going up. That's something we can't do anything about. Some of those savings you saw in the past, where there were huge savings, you had interest rates, bonds that had been sold at very high rates and being refinanced into very, very low rates. You know, you're getting $15 million of taxpayer savings. Those were at the 10 and 20% range. I think that world is gone for quite some time.
So you don't think we can take a different route and potentially save more?
I do not.
Other
And
comments,
one more
Member
quick
Lane?
question for Scott is for general obligation for refunding bonds, we don't need to go back to the voter. It's just only for our board to make the decision for you to move it forward. Am I correct?
That is correct. It requires a simple majority vote.
Thank you.
And the administration is recommending approval of this measure. So more comments, questions, or a motion? Move for approval by Member Cortese and seconded by Vice President Chavez. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, and it passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item point 804 on adopting resolution recognizing and honoring the flag of the former Republic of Vietnam and honoring the contributions of Vietnamese Americans. Member Lay.
Well, thank you, Board President, and thank you, Superintendent Glenn Vanderzee. This item that I brought it up actually very much every year during the time of April 30th, the Black April. This significant day is always brought back a lot of memory for me as 5 families escaped by boat during the fall of Saigon. And this resolution helped to recognize the commemoration or honoring of the anniversary of the fall of Saigon on April 30th, 1975, also known as the Black April. And each year at the district school site, including the teaching and discussion of the significance of the impact of the fall of Saigon on the life of Vietnamese Americans and the contribution of the Vietnamese American community to the enrichment of the cultural, language, and viewpoint diversity of our community and district schools. And tomorrow is the first time that the district will work to organize the flag ceremony at the Yoba Buana High School. So I also want to invite everyone who would be interested to join us. And I want to thank you, Superintendent Glenn Vanderzee, who helped coordinate it, as well as Director Tim for translation. Also acknowledge and appreciate the community member, Jimmy Fan, who stepped up and let us borrow the 2 flagpole posts, and also appreciate the principal of YB, Marilyn Paulitz, and Vice Principal Hindwan, as well as VSA, who hosts the event tomorrow at 11:30 at YB in front of Student Union. And I hope that the board will approve the resolution.
Move for approval.
Moved by member Doe, seconded,
I'll second.
seconded by member Cortez.
I have a comment though, before we vote. I'm really grateful that you bring this resolution forward. This county has the highest population of Vietnamese community members out of any city outside of Vietnam. And I think it's important to remember the impact of this day that was just a seismic shift in for the people of Vietnam, but also for those of us who are now blessed to live with those people who chose to can't come here and make this place their home. So this is an opportunity for us to show solidarity with our Vietnamese neighbors, and I'm very happy to support this resolution. And thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you. It was moved by member Doe, seconded by member Cortez. Student board representative, how do you vote? Angela.
Angela, if you'd like to unmute yourself and you may vote on this item, whether you choose to vote to adopt the resolution or not.
Yeah, can you guys repeat the resolution again?
Excuse me?
Yeah, can you repeat the resolution again?
So let me just describe that it's been moved by member Doe and seconded by member Cortese to authorize the resolution honoring the flag of the former Republic of Vietnam and honoring the contributions of Vietnamese Americans. So how do you vote?
I feel that we should recognize the flag.
Okay, so you vote yes, you vote aye. Thank you, and I'm going to call for the vote for the board. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions, and it passes unanimously. Thank you. On to item 8. The next one. Oh, 8.05.
0.05.
Okay, presentation regarding student learning software. Mr. Willihan and Ms. Marquez. And Mr. Phelps. And Mr. Phelps.
Good evening, members of the board and team. Tonight we're,
Is your microphone?
yes, it is. Tonight we're discussing the adoption of a new learning management system. Go ahead, Glenn. The situation we found ourselves in was that we need a modern system that does all the things that modern learning management systems do. And our old one does not do all of those things. Also, our old system had become dated. It was no longer, you have a question? Yeah.
Already.
What's a learning management system as
Ah,
opposed to all the other things that track student data?
So, a learning management system allows teachers, students, and families to be able to connect to learn about how their student is progressing. It allows the teachers to deliver instruction. It allows them to collect the data and the papers and the tests can be handed in there. Reports can be generated through that. Grading can be done within the system. So it's kind of like a super fancy grade book.
So how is that different than like Infinite Campus? We're not eliminating that, right?
No,
Yeah. So what does that
Infinite
do?
Campus also has a grade book. However, the general consensus among all of our teachers in our groups when we met with them is that they don't favor the grade book at Infinite Campus. So out of deference to that, we do have some teachers who use the Infinite Campus grade book, but out of deference to that wish, a learning management system also does things that Infinite Campus doesn't do in terms of collecting all of the lessons and the video lessons and the ability to embed from multiple applications. It's really, as we've seen the demonstrations, I think it was an eye opener for all of us to see just how far things have progressed and how nice it would be for our teachers to have those things and to have a really solid grade book and to have a really solid company behind that so that we can get support and make sure that the product's always being advanced so that we don't kind of run out of runway.
So what does, I'm sorry,
Oh, go
what
ahead.
does Infinite Campus do that we're keeping because we're not using the grade
Well,
book?
Infinite Campus does, if we were going to speak in percentages, a learning management system does about 10 to 12% of the work that we need to in terms of student record. Infinite Campus does almost all the rest. It does the actual report cards. It does the creating the classes. It does putting the teachers and the kids together. It does the transcripts. It does all that. That's all very heavy
Oh, I
lifting from a
see.
computer standpoint.
So this learning management software will talk with Infinite Campus,
Mhm.
but Infinite Campus will not be the interface for users. As far as grade book and things like that go.
For teachers using a grade book, most of them, our thought is that everyone will just move to the learning management system and their grades will just flow into Infinite Campus and they won't have to spend much time in there.
Got it. Thank you. That context is helpful for me. Thank you.
Okay, great. So our old system had become dated. The company has been sold several times. Their support is now done kind of as a piecemeal work thing across the world by a company called Crossover. It's pretty spotty because about half the time the people are getting up to speed with what the application is in the first couple of days. And then finally in the third or fourth day, they go, oh, here's how you fix it. It's not tenable any longer. So about 18 months ago, in the heart of the pandemic, we kind of said, hey, we're going to be making a switch, but we're going to give this time so that we don't rush everybody through it. And so we, okay, so I think that we can go to the next slide. So we kind of knew that we needed to have a change and we wanted to go through a process and we wanted to try some new things. You know, I like to do more than one thing at a time if I can because time's always so short. So we wanted to learn a new way so that when we adopt things in the district, our goal has been to, you know, equity is our thing. And we need to make sure we have all the voices in the room. We need to have a way for people to really share their experiences and to make sure that they get their question asked and they get it answered. So we kind of tried something different. We learned a lot during distance learning, which was Zoom works. There's a lot of great things about Zoom. You can have really, really giant meetings. I know from the training I went through and some of the trainings I went through in Zoom where there were 60 people and it was great. It was some of the best training. You know, it relies on you to pay attention, but we announced that we were going to make a change. Then we provided intermediate solutions. So we use Google Classroom as the intermediate. There are people who are still using School Loop, so we continued to pay for that so that people wouldn't be left out in the cold. And then we started to create a committee to look for the new solutions. And so we gathered that committee together in February, and it ranges a little bit in number, but there's about 45 standing members. What was great was we sent an email out to the entire staff and said, whatever walk of life you're in, if you'd like to be part of this committee, you just need to apply in a Google form where you click the box saying, I promise to attend the meetings. The fidelity people have had to that committee has been amazing, and it's been a great group. And the people that we attracted were the biggest users of our previous School Loop and in our previous grade books. So the people with the most informed opinions, plus we got some new people, Lynn Murray and several other people. We had a committee to attract parents and to attract students. And we have tonight I'm gonna have Lynn come up and just talk about the kids and maybe have them give a little bit of their experience. And then we've gathered that committee together each week to talk through what we wanted our process to be for selection, to talk through what features we wanted in the new LMS, and then to send them out to the major vendors. They investigated the vendors and then we brought them in to do demonstrations for us. And we've narrowed it now actually down to two. One of the vendors was finally eliminated because they had no plans to develop Vietnamese. So sorry, like what you just said about, we know our community has to have a communication. So we're down to two, which both support it. Okay, next slide. So I covered a lot of this. What was really fun was doing the Zoom part, we could keep track of all the questions. When people dropped off after an hour, I stayed on and we stayed with the vendors. They answered all the questions in YouTube. All the YouTubes were saved so that it's available for anyone who can go to the our Zoom, our YouTube site. And out of those, we're very close to a vote. We're down to the final questions. Yesterday, we got together for a meeting. We got the final things that people wanted to see. What was great was we're down to, the vendors said they could do this. I went into the sandbox and tried to do that. I could not do that. Will you demonstrate in a movie so that we could show everybody else? Don't just show me, show everybody. So we'll have those back probably by Monday. And then on Tuesday, we'll determine the vote. And then our plan is to, we can probably go to the next slide. Our plan is to put it to a vote. And for the first time, like, let people select it so that this time it's not this little small group just decided in a dark room. We voted. These are both good candidates. We could put both of these forward. We'll vote on it. We'll adopt it. Both Omar and myself are abstaining from voting so that all we have to do is guide the process and we can help it be a successful thing. So that was a really critical thing for us. Yeah, go ahead, that's fine.
So there really are no significant trade-offs, one versus the other?
We live in a golden age in terms of computing. You know, you can buy, you know, back 25 years ago, people would argue this computer a Dell was better than a HP. And nowadays, everybody pretty much makes really good equipment. Nowadays, software is pretty good. There are candidates that we started with 14 candidates and we're down to 2. So clearly there are differentiating factors. What's great is we had these learned people who are both counselors or teachers or whatever, who could really pick apart the little parts that I wouldn't be able to do. So there are differentiating characteristics, but in the end, these last 2, we can go to a popular vote and we can feel comfortable with it that we chose well. Will they do everything? Will they do everything that everyone wants? No. There will be things that people will want that they don't do, but they'll be the best of class.
Vice President Chavez.
We're working with Munis, and I know we're rolling out different parts of it. Is there any part of Munis that would be connected with this? And if so, is it compatible?
Yes. So the great thing in Munis, we're about to add in, we're just kicking off another project in Munis where we're adding in all of the HR data. So what's great about the modern systems with IC is modern, Munis is modern, and our new LMS will be modern. We'll be able to actually compare data and pull it into what's called a data lake. And we'll be able to look like, can we learn some things about this teacher works best with these kinds of kids. These kinds of kids work best in these kinds of environments. We'll be able to pull some of that. We've never had that kind of HR data to play with before, but we can look at that and we can really improve, I think, our teachers' lot. And by improving their lot, we're going to improve the kids' lot quite a bit by finding the best ways that people can perform and be comfortable in their environment. So I think it's going to be huge.
Okay, but it won't conflict, like it won't, like they can't speak to each other if necessary, or is that not even a thing? Is there any connection, I guess is my question, because if we're going to get something and there's a potential and a need to connect, I'm sure you've already thought through.
No. This is great. I love you that you're asking, because I love the question where I know the answer. Those are really fun. So we agreed in our LMS committee, we agreed not to let anyone in the room unless it talked. So the entering behavior was, are you a sharer or are you a hider? And for these guys, they have great security, but their ability to share with other applications is modern rather than just dropping off an Excel file like old-fashioned stuff. So all modern, and they'll be able to talk. And Munis is kind of leading the class in that they really allow for us to connect things to it. So it's going to be great. This is kind of our implementation, you know, after the board, if they so choose, approves the decision of the committee, we'll go to contract and then we'll move to implementation. The technical part will probably take us about 2 weeks just to get the things to talk. That's used to be like 4 months. Now it's pretty easy, and we've already done the engineering to kind of figure it out. Then what we'll do is we'll work with Teresa and her team, along with some of the committee members we have in the software adoption committee. Several of them, I'm going to work with them to try to build them out as leaders for their sites to bring people on up to speed. We'll work with Tressa's group in terms of training in our help desk. And we'll start having training, lots of little bits and pieces so that people don't have to spend a whole day in a training class or something like that, but enough to where they can really get rocking with the grade book and with the system. The thing that we're going to want to do is we'll invest in that. And so I really appreciated the earlier conversation because I want to keep the tech ball rolling since everything in here is tech bond. So the training part, we'll want to just keep people growing, not just to do basics in the grade book, but to actually be able to do the video pieces and all the add-ons and add in the products we already have, like WeVideo, where you can do telestrations, and even better, the kids can do them. When we move the work quotient from the teacher to the kids, and the kids are creating, doing the work, that's really where we're going to see that product really pay for itself. So that'll be our implementation plan, and it really will be ongoing. On my plan, we've got a great core of people, so we'll keep growing that, and I think that that's going to be highly successful. So what's ahead? One of your first question. So one of our first requirements was whatever we're going to get has to be able to connect to a modern system. One other thing that I would mention is that in this age, we've all gotten those emails where the people tell you they've taken over your computer or they're going to hold it ransom. If you watch the news, different hospitals and whatnot. So one of our strategies to avoid ransomware is we've moved each of these different systems into the cloud, and they're connected securely, but it wouldn't be that someone could make one attack and get all of our systems. So when I met with our security consultant yesterday, he said there would be no worry about, we would never have to pay a ransom. And honestly, one of my goals this late in my life is never to be taken for ransom. I just don't want to go to Glenn's office and go, hey, so you got an extra 500 grand around? I just don't want to have to do that. The flexibility in these three systems we're evaluating provide modern approaches. So this is kind of things I've covered. And each of the companies we've evaluated fit the bill for that. Okay, one more. Okay, we covered that. The evaluation process. So we plan to evaluate at 6 months. I'm hoping to kind of keep that software adoption group together. As we go to adopt things, I kind of want them to be included all the time. So that as we make selections, we can do it more and more this way, where we're doing it the old fashioned way they did it in Greece 1,000 years ago, where everyone could kind of vote. Since we have the ability and the skills to do it, why not, right? And the voices we hear are really, really good and varied. And to that point, I think Lynn's here. So Lynn's on our committee. Well, we'll cover it right now. We'll kill two birds with one stone. So Lynn's one of the members of our committee, and she has been doing amazing work recruiting kids to look at stuff and make comments.
Okay, Lynn, you're now officially per your request to speak. You have 2 minutes to speak.
2 minutes. Do you know me? Oh my goodness. Okay, here we go. So I will say that I'm excited to be part of this committee and really excited that 12 students throughout our district, I gotta say it, Randy, 6 from Piedmont Hills, are chiming in, asking great questions. A couple of sessions ago, one of the students asked about what does grading for equity look like in your system, and to show us where it's equitable. So I'm really excited about that. So I have all these index cards from various students. And if you remember me, I love hashtags. So it's hashtag like it, hashtag leave it. So I have some work to do for Randy to put these into scenarios, but I'll give you a few of the things that are important to students. Tell me when I'm missing an assignment. Keep me logged on until I log off. Allow me to see the last semester's grade. So if I'm in a different class than I was in first semester, I still want to get back to that while I'm in the second semester. Automatically send me what they love about School Loop are the graphs, the bar graphs that show them how they're doing in a class when their grade has dipped, and then they go click in and they could tell which assignment or which test allowed that dip or gave me an increase. Show important school and community announcements and make that easy for me to access. Upload the completed assignments and confirm with me that that's been done correctly. I'll give you a few more and then see if you have any questions. Hide grade options. Do you know what that means? Like if they're on the screen, like let's say they're in a computer lab or they're in classroom with all of the Chromebooks and they have their grades up and someone comes by, they can just click and have their grade information be hidden and then click get back to it. Make sure that it's aesthetically pleasing. You might remember that, Randy, that the students were going, this looks old. And I kind of took offense to that, but okay.
That's not what I'm
Yeah, it is not, definitely. Not have it have a lot of clicks to get me to my grades. So their thing is, what's my grade in the class? Do I have missing assignments? I don't want to have to click 10 times to get that information. Grade performance, a grade calculator and predictor. You guys know about this, teachers? It's amazing. What students can do is say, here's what my grade is now. What do I have to get on this test in order to get a 95% in the class? That is a must-have. Should be easy to manage, allow Gmails to be sent. Mobile application, they want the app to be, I quote, as full function as the computer application and translate into different languages, including Vietnamese, Spanish, Mandarin, lots of others. Yeah, it's been amazing to be with the students.
I want to explain to the audience that I've actually shifted you to being a part of Randy Phelps' presentation, no
Yes.
longer bound by the 2-minute
No
speaker
problem.
thing. So just keep on speaking.
Oh, okay. Do you have any questions before I? Oh, thank you.
They're gonna have.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Actually, Lynn, before you leave, I want to check in with our student governing board member, Angela, to see if you had any questions regarding this change from School Loop to some other application.
I don't have any questions. Yeah, but thank you for asking.
No questions?
No.
Now's the time to ask them if you have them.
That's fine. Thank you, Angela.
Okay, Randy, you're still in your presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Very close to being done.
Okay, very good.
So this slide, I just kind of want to show you part on the ed services side. This is just part of what we do from IT in terms of the things that we try to provide help with in terms of guiding. You know, just that's kind of our role in this particular adoption, is to guide this. And so there's a lot of pieces and all of them have to talk to each other. And of course, the next slide over here would be the business services one, where you'd see that these could talk to those. And we're finally going to really have that. I think by the end of the summer, we're going to have where all these systems can really talk with the tools like Remind that we brought in during the pandemic. As that grows out, we added in a bunch of features that one of our Jenny at Piedmont said, Randy, if I just had these features in Remind, I would love it. And I was going, I'm getting those features for you in Remind, and they've been great. Other people have now said, I really like that. So this is kind of where it fits in our ecosystem. And then from there, questions?
Let me first call on a speaker that is online, Mary Gillen.
Public comment from parent Ton Barreto. As a parent and teacher serving on the software adoption committee, I would like to acknowledge that the entire process has been very well organized, professional, and equitable. The protocol set forth allowed for effective discussions and feedback about each programs we examined. I feel confident that the software we adopt will serve all teachers, students, and guardians because of the process we went through. Thank you.
I want to also emphasize that same point. I've been really impressed by the process that has played out and how authentic the consultation and partnership has been. And to me, it reflects exactly the kind of organizational culture that we want here, of co-owning and just, being together in understanding and arriving at some decision. And you've played it to the max in this process.
Well, I can only give extreme kudos to the entire committee, but Omar Gutierrez has been just fantastic. He picks up all the pieces and makes sure it all works out. Tress and Martha have been awesome as far as support. Kirsten, same thing. It's just great. And what's been fun is This is a team I really feel like we can keep doing things with because they're just outstanding. It's just a great group of people. So
But this is the kind of thing that can really crossfire and a lot of disagreement and a lot of discontent. And instead, we're arriving at exactly the kind of comment we just heard from our online.
which is appreciated by a great committee member.
All right, members of the board, Mr. Doe.
I just want to disclose that I am a member of that committee.
That's right.
However, because I'm a board member, I make no comments. I did not suggest, I abstained from all vote, but I did, however, observe this amazing process and all the passions that everybody was involved in. So I say kudos to you, your team, and all the members of the committees. Thank you.
This is only a
We have
presentation.
hands, huh?
It's only
Board
a
President, we do have
presentation tonight.
someone who would like to make a comment online.
Okay, go ahead.
Ava Chow.
Hello, board members and audience. My name is Ava Chow. I am a science teacher at Independence, and I just want to let you know that I agree the process, and it's really good that Randy has ensured that we have stakeholders, including parents and students. And in addition, I think one of the things that we always kept in mind is besides the needs of everybody, like ensuring that the parents would have the view of the student grades, like equal access view, like everything that the student would see and what the teachers would publish. And I appreciate how the students' perspective of like being able to hide their grades when they need to for privacy issues, but also the number of clicks, because the number of clicks for teachers when we're entering grades, that's also important too, because we don't want repetitive stress syndrome as well. And the other thing that I think right now we're looking at an issue is equity grading. And it's a thing that we want to do for the students, but we also want to make it as an option for our teachers to be able to do equity grading. And I think the biggest point for teachers to look at is making sure it's a good grade book, because as Randy says, Infinite Campus probably does 90% of all the other things that we need to do in terms of the systems. So I think, you know, the grade book and that the parents would have access. We also eliminated some of the other ones because they wouldn't have the Vietnamese translations. Usually most entities have Spanish, but we want to be able to make sure that's accessible for our students and parents. So just kind of give you a little update, you know, what we're comparing, and we're scrutinizing it because it would probably be a 3-year commitment. Thank you.
Okay, so this is again only a presentation tonight. This is not a decision moment.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
We haven't voted yet.
Randy, I just want to express my gratitude for the process and how just you outlined everything here is very clear. I know the previous conversation, I had a lot of questions, but everything synthesized it here. So thank you. And thank you to Omar. If you're listening out there, I think he might be. And Teresa and Marta, Ms. Murray, thank you for making sure that our baby's voice is at the table. Really appreciated all those hashtags. I need some help with those hashtags, so maybe I can talk to you later about some suggestions, but very, very good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Moving on to item 9 on the agenda, public, no, excuse me. Item 10 on the agenda, public members who wish to address the board, and I do have several requests to speak in person, and I'm sure also online. And I'm going to start again, 2 minutes each, folks. You can come to the microphone. I'm going to call Lisa Baker, followed by Harriet Garcia, followed by Dr. Curtis. So if you can step forward and be ready to step to the microphone. I'm going to keep calling names so that you're lined up and near the microphone. Lisa Baker, followed by Harriet Garcia, followed by Doc Curtis.
Before you
I'm
start.
sorry, Ms. Gillen, can you please run the clock so that it's visible to the speakers?
Can I ask real quick? So we didn't know we couldn't give time away. So
No,
the
you
3 of
cannot
us
give
are
time
from
away.
one site.
Excuse me?
we didn't know we can no longer give
Yeah, you can't
minutes.
give your time to someone
Correct.
else.
So we want to go in this order because we're going to go off of our notes.
Okay,
Is that okay?
that's fine.
Okay. And then you guys just have to. Okay. I'm ready.
Right ahead.
So hello, my name is Lisa Baker, and I've worked for Eastside as a teacher since 1997. Before I begin my comments, I want to thank board members Brian Doe, Manuel Herrera, and Von Lay for taking the time to come to Independence, talk to the staff and the students. You listened, you asked questions, you made us believe that you care about our community. Board members Lorena Chavez and Patty Cortese, we invite you to do the same. My current role is student advisor, and I've been doing this at Independence for the past 10 years. I also serve as a physical education subject area coordinator. In August 2021, I attended meetings with both groups here at the district. We had many robust conversations about how challenging the school year was anticipated to be. I thought I and our entire team were ready personally and professionally, and we weren't. When we opened our campus, we had 50% of our students who were unknown to us as well as each other. Add to that fact, everyone was masked. As we welcomed our newbies and returning 11th and 12th graders, we started having incidents occurring that I couldn't believe were happening. Our students and staff have had to deal with 3 egregious types of behaviors. Number 1, trespassers. Number 2, assaults of multiple students versus 1. And number 3, robberies in the first 3 months of school against our male students. Number 1, trespassers. Adults and family members, as well as suspended and expelled students returning to campus. 3 of these students have been coming onto our campus on a daily basis. These trespassers have attempted and succeeded in assaulting our students, as well as members of our safety team. We also have had to deal with homeless encampment at the edge of our baseball field. We've had them attempt to play softball with PE, as well as they've wandered into several of our classrooms. The district is asking our frontline administrators and safety team
So
to
Lisa,
deal with
could you-
dangerous and belligerent people, and this is not fair, and some of us are not wanting to come back to work.
just
We
so
all
that
want to go
others have
home at the
same
end of the day
opportunity.
in one piece. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Doc Curtis, and I'm a student advisor at Independence, and I'm going to continue this. Number 2, assaults. Our assaults I am addressing have not been one-on-one teenage fights. These assaults have been a group of students who have attacked one student. We have had multiple assaults where it was 8 versus 1, 7 versus 1, 6 versus 1, 5, 3 versus 1. These assaults happened all over campus. They happen behind buildings, throughout our corridors. In many areas, we have either no cameras or non-functioning cameras. They happen during passing time, during brunch and lunch, as well as they happen after school. How we were able to solve most of these assaults was by getting videos from other students who saw them posted on social media platforms. As an adult and the mother, Lisa Baker, of 2 teenagers, I will never get used to seeing this type of violence. As a student advisor of 10 years, I have never seen this type of aggression and sheer disregard for personal safety. And 3, behavior, robberies on campus. We had 9 victims come forward after they were robbed in or near our boys' restrooms. 1 boy was robbed at gunpoint and 1 boy was robbed at knife point. A third was pulled off of a bench and was injured due to being slammed to the ground. The aggressors stole whatever they could, but mostly phones, AirPods, and jewelry. They told 2 of our victims, "We will kill you if you tell anyone about this." Some of these victims have left our school, and one of these victims hid in our offices every day for over a month as he waited for his mother to pick him up. I'm sure all these victims are now suffering from PTSD. How the aggressors were finally caught was they robbed the wrong guy. They robbed a senior who decided to be not a victim and who grabbed his phone back with a knife pointed at his chest, as well as he chased after them after they snatched the gold necklace off his chest.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, good evening. Greg Duarte, Independence High School, campus
Sorry, say
monitors.
your name again, please.
Greg Duarte,
Okay.
campus monitor, Independence, 17 years. I'm not saying the student made the best choice to put himself in danger. However, that was what he did. He also agreed to talk to the police and file a report. We finally got the aggressors to stop terrorizing our male students by police getting involved. Sadly, 9 kids is too many victims. We are also guessing that there are more victims, and the victims won't always come forward, as we all know that. Our site is at enough. Our staff has come together to ask the board and district leaders, what are you going to do to help our students and our staff to stay safe? I myself personally don't feel comfortable going to school every day. You all made the choice during COVID where none of us were around to move to San Jose Police Department resource officers. You did not ask the stakeholders what we all wanted and what we all thought. I, meaning Ms. Baker and myself and every staff member on our campus, believe you went with the whim of current political climate of anti-police rhetoric, as you have the right to do. An ABC report in the fall of 2021 gave statistic Eastside Union High School District 2019 to 2020, 30 schools with 2,600 students. There were 5 arrests, 31 citations, which is less than 1% of the population. Enough is enough. Please give us assistance we need. If it's not resource officers, then I hope it's something as good as preventing our students and our staff from being assaulted, robbed, and disrespected, because on a daily basis, we continue, and I mean continue, to be disrespected by our students. And it's not fair. If you had a son and daughter on our campus that want to come there and learn, I would hope you would want for them to be protected. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I have several more requests here. If you have a certain order you want to follow, then proceed in that order, and I'll locate, when you come to the microphone, I'll locate your form, and if you don't have an order, I'll just call the next one that I have. Okay, so what's the response? You have an order or you don't have an order? Okay. All right, so I'm gonna need your name so I can locate your form, because you need a form in order to speak. Say that again?
Ricky Martinez.
Martinez. Yeah, I have you here. And your name?
Josiah Martinez.
Josiah Martinez. I don't have it, Josiah Martinez, so fill it out after you speak, okay?
I'm not speaking, I'm just here studying.
Oh, I see, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Rick.
Okay, so with this violence scene going on, my son was a victim of violence. He got jumped by 3 people. When that happened, that's the worst phone call you can get, is your child got hurt. So I drove to the school, found out what happened, seen his face, was in disbelief. He's a good kid. He was in soccer, and and so forth. He's a good kid. So it happened again where they tried to jump him this time. It was about 8 kids. My son called me, and hearing his voice, being scared like that, saying, "Dad, they're going to jump me again." There was nothing that the school can do, because teachers are not bodyguards. They get hurt themselves. And I took it upon myself to go to the school and confront every single one of those kids that were ready to jump him. So knowing that my child was almost hurt again, and the fact that there's no sense of security there, that even I was able to go onto campus and confront these kids. The school helped as much as they could, but like I said, they're not babysitters or nor are they bodyguards. And I think that it's just ridiculous that there's no sense of security there. And it's happened multiple times where he's afraid to go out in class. We almost had to transfer him. And I have another son that goes there, which I'm afraid of that too. And the individual that did it trespassed almost every day. My son had to call me, "Dad, he's here again, he's here again, he's here again." They kicked him out, he comes back, he comes back. So just knowing that they're gang members is totally different story. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. You see it on the news, you see it on the internet, you see it on YouTube of these kids fighting and stabbing each other, doing that stuff. So it's just, there's no sense of, I don't feel comfortable with my son. I always have to worry every day about that phone call, that he's getting hurt again, that he's getting harassed again. So there needs to be some kind of security
Thank you very much. All right. In order to keep, should I just call names now, or do you have an order? Okay, which two? Harriet, Garcia, and who? Okay, okay. Gretchen, okay, I have both of you forms. So come on up, please.
Hello. Hi, I'm Harriet Garcia, Independence High School. I'm going to talk really fast because I have a lot to get off my chest. I've been here at 22 years at Independence High School. Never have I wanted to leave the profession until this year. September, I was almost assaulted by a student, and I can handle the names. I've been here long enough. I can handle the dirty looks. I can handle the verbal profanity-laced rants. What I can't handle is feeling the same type of safety that the parent just mentioned, the lack of safety, not only as an adult, because this is my job, right? I can get in the car and go home. But I have students, we have students. I have a son and daughter who go to Gunderson. They had a stabbing a few weeks ago. They have 2 SROs. And while I was nervous for my daughter at that school, I was very confident, or not confident, I was very somewhat relieved that I knew they had 2 SROs to try to take care of their kids. Thankfully, that situation was taken care of, but just hearing that parent breaks my heart. And it makes me feel ashamed that we're not protecting our students. I totally went off script, I apologize. Anyway, SROs, I understand the concern that students have and parents with racism and not trusting authority. We know that there has been a lack of trust in authority with police officers. I have personally had experience with distrusting police officers, but I won't go into that story. But the point that we're talking about right now is safety. This is not a political issue. This is not about running away from issues that might be uncomfortable to talk about. This is about walking around our campus, our advisors with these lanyards. That's all they have. I can close my door and teach, and I can close my door and I'm done. They walk around to keep us safe, and this is all they have against knives, guns, assaults, 10-on-1, 5-on-1, 15-on-1. Ask them and see how they feel on campus, because if that's how they're feeling, imagine how our students feel. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And this
Hi,
is
I'm Gretchen Larice from Independence High School. I'm using her script, so I'm staying on script. Look at our campus survey results for staff, parents, and students, and you will see that the majority support SROs. We hope that you reconsider investing in school resource officers, more advisors, more cameras, all with the goal to protect and support our students and staff. Investing in school resource officers is a step forward, a way to engage everyone in creating and maintaining a safe, productive, and engaging school setting. Our concern today isn't political, but it is about safety. We have 2,700 students on campus, 200 staff members, and we are on land that is 100+ acres. Our campus is larger than Disneyland's California Adventure. We have various entry points onto campus, and we have various issues that daily impact our students' safety. We need to do something to address the real and genuine concerns of staff, students, and families. We must start somewhere, as our commitment to create a safe and engaging learning environment is non-existent right now. SROs would serve in a partnership with the school, stakeholders, and parents in establishing a bond and a relationship. So please understand that we are asking for your support in living up to our East Side Union's mission to create safe, dynamic, and relevant learning environments that inspire critical thinking, problem solving, and innovation. Sadly and honestly, we are not living up to our mission for every and all students. Help us restore our safe, dynamic, and engaging school environment. Help us restore the pride and trust in our school environment. Help us reinstill in our parents and families that independence in every other East Side school, for that matter, is and will continue to be a great place to send their children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I can call the remaining ones I have, and if there's no particular order, I'll call Maynard Ramirez, followed by Virginia Finger, something like that. Please step forward, the names that are called, and also Joanna Shea.
Hello, good evening. I'm Maynard Ramirez. I'm not part of that group, but I share the same passion.
You're a parent.
My grandkids,
Oh, okay,
all my kids went to Mount Pleasant. We've been involved there for over 30 years. I echo what they just said, and I don't want to be repetitious, but it seems like these kids are running around with impunity. Nobody does anything. The teachers have thrown their hands up in the air and saying, why report it? Nothing gets done. So I ask you to please review your policy on delinquency on these kids, because apparently they keep coming back day after day after day after day. And they keep doing what they are doing. They're bullying the kids that want to learn. They're bothering the classrooms. They're pounding on the windows, playing music right outside their doors. And my question the other day was, is there supposed to be music on campus? No. Well, then why is there? So somebody is dropping the ball, and I'm asking for your help in reinstating or reviewing your policy. And one of my last things I want to say is, I don't think parents know the degree or the decaying degree of the schools, because they don't come to campus and they don't walk around and observe. I did a couple of weeks ago, and I witnessed an assault on the principal. Verbal, I don't know if it got to physical. It got very ugly. That's the first time I had been on campus in years. And while walking in there, I'm hearing this language. Sailors don't even talk like this. And I'm going like, is this what our schools have come to? Just as I'm right now, a few minutes ago, I got a text. Today, there was an ugly incident at Mount Pleasant. A student got jumped by these same group of kids. And apparently there's a large police presence. So I urge you to review the policies, because we need some help. I don't know if police are the answer, but something has to be done.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. Virginia Engelfinger, Joanna Shea, and followed by Leah Cohen.
Yes, hi, Virginia Engelfinger, Independence High School multimedia teacher for about 17 years. My first year I was pregnant with my son, so he's 16. This is the first year I would not bring my son to the school. He attends a different high school, but I've always been, over every year, I have memories with my boy at Independence High School. So it's been scary. I'll go on script. I'm also the ESTA IHS site VP. I teach primarily digital art, and I love it so much, and I love my kids, and I'm beyond measure grateful to be a service to them. When I hear them go through this, it makes me cry. I'm very emotional right now. It is no secret that we as a site, the second largest in the state in terms of land mass, have experienced an uptake in violence and vandalism. There have been mob fights, student-on-student fights, ex-students who have been expelled or trespassing on our campus and starting fights. Adults are entering our site and fighting our students. Our bathrooms are being vandalized on the daily. They're being shut down. Kids can't even use the restroom. Students are traveling in packs to bathrooms because they don't feel safe. Many students who have been assaulted or have been targeted areas are forced to go on ISP, independent study program. One of my students ran to me during my sixth period just a week and a half or about 2 weeks ago and exclaimed, "Miss I, please help me, I'm being chased." I immediately hid him in my utilities closet adjacent to my classroom door. I since heard that this was a student that had been expelled and was known for carrying. I haven't seen Derek Kazada since, and he's a wonderful boy, and I miss him. And he can't go to school and just be a kid. He can't be a kid. That's upsetting. Our kids deserve help. They deserve to come to a school with the awareness and assurance they will be protected. This is their human right. They deserve this. I'm in support of hiring special resource officers prior to the discontinuation of SROs in our district. Independence at San Jose PD. We are asking for SROs. These are officers that are trained to work with our community, with our kids. They are trained. They are also located at San Jose Unified, and they continue to hire them. I lastly would like to say, as it is, we have a total of 3 advisors for a landmass equivalent to Disneyland. Disneyland has enough cameras and security. We should too. All I'm saying is that we're just as important as Disneyland, okay?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
What else?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Show up for our kids.
All right, so
Hi, good evening, trustees and Mr. Fantasi. This is my 24th year working at
name,
Independence High
Oh,
School.
no,
I'm
chapter
Joanna
on
Shea,
the-
by the way, sorry. And then I want to tell my own story. September 1st, it was the first time in 24 years my car window got broken in. I just parked outside of my classroom. So I moved to the staff lot. A few weeks later, it got broken in again. So I parked at the ad lot. And then in November, there's after school, there was a strange person that drove his truck up to my classroom. And he opened up the metal plate outside of my classroom that covered the drainage. And then he was talking something really weird. I thought he was from the district, but it ended up that he wanted me to go over there. I felt he wanted to push me into the hole there. And so I took out my camera and then he started to cuss at me. So I was really scared. And then I ran away. So I think I sent photos to the district. And then last night I sent those photos to you about all the different incidences. And then I have students outside of my classroom making noises. And I asked them, oh, would you please move over? Those are from the charter school. And then they would just say, you bitch, like had no respect. And then I had students that my own students were showing me, throughout the years of all the fights, and then so I seen pieces here and there. And also they kicked soccer ball into my room, no respect. So, okay, oh, I'm almost done. So anyway, please help us. That's what I want to say. Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, Leah Cohen followed by Rachel Warren.
Warrens. Hi, I'm Leah Cohen. I'm the social worker at Independence High School. Thank you for having us here to talk today. I want you to know that my opinion tonight is only about Independence High School and it does not represent the social work team as a whole. But I am here to explain the difference between SJPD, the way that we've had them on our campuses previously, and SROs. It's a different thing. I'm not for having SJPD back on our campuses, even though we need support and we need protection and our safety is at risk every day at work. It's very scary over there. And I'm telling you that I'm very upset with having some of the advisors being punched in the face, other teachers being punched in the face. There's just an unrest that's happening at Independence that is, I think, unique due to the vastness of the campus. But what I wanted to say is that SROs are specifically trained to be school resource officers. There's an 80-hour training that they will take that is only available in LA, okay? So this is not something that SJPD has available right now, but they would be able to send their officers to this training course. The training course is 80 hours. They learn the PBIS, they learn restorative practices, they learn trauma-informed education and training, and they are the only ones that are on our campus. They are not changing all the time. They're not coming in after a long shift. They are the folks that are gonna be there every day. They're gonna learn who these kids are. They're gonna build relationships, which is what we're trying to do right now in this school district. And they are the folks that are going to actually mentor students, know them by first name, get to know them in terms of, what can we do today to make a different choice? And that's what I want to see on our campuses. I don't even want to see uniforms at all. I want to see jeans and a t-shirt. Maybe if they have to have a star, they have a star. But I think that we can do this in a very different, intentional way. Thank you.
Thanks for hearing me. I'm Rachel Warrens. I'm a teacher at Independence High School. I recently sent you an email explaining how I was feeling about the trespassers and the two drunken 20-something-year-olds that could have accosted a child rather than our administration and our coaches. So you know about that. So I'm going to tell you instead about a student of mine who is no longer attending school. You already heard about Derek. Derek is his cousin. Both of these two students have been assaulted more than once. Joseph is academically vulnerable. He is an English language learner. He has special ed accommodations. He was brought to me by our amazing advisors who get to know these kids who are vulnerable and make relationships with them. And they brought him to me about mid-semester, the first semester, and said, I know you'll take care of Joseph. So here he is. He would not normally take a physics class. Joseph came to my class. He was in the back of the room all the time, like some of these students are. But he became a student who was taking good notes, working with his teammates, getting B's on his quizzes because he became a student. He's now at home in independent study, and I can't reach him there. And it's because of these assaults. Our kids don't feel safe. I polled my students because they asked me, Ms. Warrens, why don't we have those officers on campus anymore? And so I polled my students, 150 plus, to see how they felt. They all wanted, all except maybe 2 or 3, wanted those officers back on campus. They want to feel safe. They want to learn. So, thank you.
I have a request also from Mr. Jack Hamner, but I'm going to hold on that and ask Ms. Gillen if there are any online comments, and Mr. Superintendent, if someone wants to speak live online. So Ms. Gillen,
We have online, but we also have persons in Zoom raising their hand if you want to do those first.
whichever, let's proceed.
Faith Figueroa, you have 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Faith Figueroa. I'm 17 years old. I'm from Independence High School. I'm also representing California for Justice as a student leader. I would like to take this opportunity to address SROs related with funding and how this can result in lack of resources on campus. So depending on if there's a stimulus like we've had in the last amount of funding, there's only so much funding to kind of produce and initiate resources on campus. SRO contracts can cost around like $500,000 annually, or up to $700,000 in some cases. Therefore, also observing the SRO appearance on campus relating with students has pushed for this movement that has started in San Francisco, Portland, Minneapolis, Denver, and many other states around the country. I'm just here to say that budget priorities should be funded to social programming and investments to prevent crime. We are here to ask sustainable and long-term solutions like restorative justice, more diverse therapists, more nurses on campus, and even more resources from different organizations that we have yet to have the funding today. So that's one of the biggest concerns. And I would like to say that this issue, saying that it's not political, it's not inconclusive facts to say that Black and Brown students are targeted disproportionately. School to prison pipeline is not a fake notion. These are real facts and real concerns within the only 80 hours of training that SRO officers truly get. That would be it. If there's any different questions I can have or any clarifications be needed, I can answer those. Thank you.
Sorry, this is not a discussion with you. You've made your comment and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Michael Wood.
Hi, thank you so much. So I wanted to just, say I'm a social worker at Andrew Hill, been here for 8 years. I'm also in ESTA in the leadership. And so I wanted to say that I hear, what's going on and there's a lot of emotion. Just something to remember is, when we're really upset, sometimes we want to react. We want to react to whatever is happening. And our response may be different than when we're calm. And oftentimes we may make mistakes when we're upset. I just wanted to say, looking at the campus survey results that were provided by Independence, I think that the very first question kind of said it all for me, that if you put together, I mean, the vast majority of what was said was people, when asked if they felt safe, most of them were neutral. And if you added up the agree and strongly agree, you have 60 to 70+% of staff, student, and family members that said that they agree or are neutral. So I think that that is something that we have to take into account. Students have lost 2 years of developmental opportunities through COVID-19. And so mental health and challenging behaviors have rose. And we saw that kind of get really bad at the very beginning of the year. And then at least in Andrew Hill, I know that we've seen a pretty quick decline, but I don't know if that's the same in all the schools, but I know that we've done some work to bring that down. And so we may still be kind of running off of the feelings that we have of what happened last semester. I also wanted to say luck is having been prepared when an opportunity arises. So
You need to
thinking
conclude
about,
your remarks, please.
I'm sorry?
You need to conclude your remarks, or two minutes are up.
Okay, so just, we haven't really spent enough time building capacity with restorative practices and therapeutic crisis intervention. And so when we came back from distance learning, we weren't prepared. So we weren't able to really handle a lot of the situations that we have on campus. So
Thank you very much
so
for your
much.
comments. Thank you. Superintendent, are there others?
Yes. Josh Yang, you have 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Hello. Hello all. My name is Josh and I'm an organizer with Californians for Justice. And I'll be reading this comment on the behalf of my colleague Netta, who was not able to join today. My name is Netta and I'm an organizer and leadership development coordinator with Californians for Justice. Thank you, board members, for your time and your care. I want to address the sexual assault incidents that have taken place in the district and the response to them. The fact that so many student leaders have banded together to respond to the incidents of sexual assault that they feel the adults in their lives are not adequately addressing or handling is disappointing and says volumes. The very last thing we need from our leaders is to make this worse by bringing another institution that harms students back into their vicinity. We're here to advocate for how to best guarantee student safety in this community. Yet student safety is what is at risk with the return of school resource officers. Students should not be forced to choose between safety from sexual harassment and sexual assault and safety from being racially harassed, racially profiled, and surveillance like their very existence is a crime. Schools are not prisons, and we cannot treat students like criminals in waiting. I urge you to truly prioritize the voices of the students you will be hearing today. I can't tell you how many students have told me stories of being targeted and harassed by the resource officers at their schools. This is not the solution. Instead, I urge you to immediately implement a task force that will allow students, parents, staff, and families to be the one designing a safety plan for their schools. Police officers does not make students feel safe. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Superintendent, any others?
Yes. Ava Chow, you have 2 minutes.
Hello, school board members and my fellow teachers at Independence who are here. And my name is Ava Chow, biology teacher at Independence, and also the current SS secretary. However, today I'm speaking as a concerned teacher. Independence do not represent the feelings of ESTA. So this is the first year I do not feel safe on campus. I always have to have my phone with me just in case I need to film for my safety. That is crazy. I don't think I ever want to feel this way. So you've heard there are a lot of violence going on. What do we do? There's more than one possible solution. We need a multifaceted plan so that we cover everything, because it is a lot of factors in a complex issue. Out of the 467 ESTA members surveyed, 60% of them would like a school resource officers. School resource officer that is hired by Eastside and trained to be a school resource officer as their main job, not as a side job or a hustle or a gig. And in plain closing, we would have agreements in that they would be with us. So it would be different. It is not a police officer because they do not work for San Jose Police Department. They would be working for Eastside. School resource officer is another opportunity to build positive relationships with students. It's to keep trespassers off campus, not only from the suspended and expelled students, but also adults. Yes, adults have also come on campus to support and participate in fights. 3 that I know of. I'm sure there's more that I have not heard from the advisors. Other solutions, we can also have more advisors so they can do their job in partners for safety, additional cameras. Yes, we had some cameras recently replaced, but we replaced the cameras that were broken. We are such a big campus, they have found blind spots that have started fights. Bring back maybe in-house suspensions. I haven't seen in-house
Your 2
suspensions.
minutes are up.
And social workers, need more social workers in the health class to help address mental health. Thank you.
Next speaker, Lucila Ortiz, you have 2 minutes.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Lucila. I am the organizing director with Californians for Justice. I just want to say that police officers do not equate to safety. We and everybody in the school community creates the safety that we want to see in the schools. And it's important that we desegregate both of them and, not correlate the two of them. In the 2020 resolution that originally was passed, in which the district decided to defund the school resource officers, there was an ask for us to create a task force of students and other stakeholders to create a safety environment in the schools and look for alternatives. I would like us to see going back to those commitments and see if there's a way that we can continue to build on that, because it's very obvious that, we just need to have broader conversations. We do not need to put the lives of students at risk once again in order to create a safety community. The statistics don't lie, students of color are at risk when we bring back institutions that have been proven over and over again that they disproportionately impact students of color. So I would like to, respectfully request that the board, discuss the possibility of bringing this task force up to life and see if we can come up with solutions that actually involve the people that create the environment at the schools and not bring the institutions that have been proven to be harmful for our students.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
Yes. Dan Peñalosa. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, so I'm here. Dan Peñalosa is a he. I'm not with CFJ, but I am here in support of them. I just want to address the board on please do not bring SROs back to the school campus. I'm not going to speak on behalf of Independence or the rest of ESUHSD because I'm not from ESUHSD, but I can speak on behalf of my friends who go to SCHS. And they personally feel much safer without, this is the first year that they feel safe going back to campus because they are not in fear of being targeted or potentially being seen as suspicious and written up, or even at worst being shot and killed. Let's just be honest with that. I cannot speak on behalf of the Vietnamese community there, but I am saying as a colored person, I really cannot stress enough how much fear goes through your mind whenever you interact with a police officer. How much you have to tone everything just right and put up with whatever they do so that you can walk away and get home at the end of the day. I heard some teachers from Independence High School a while ago say that, oh, they want to feel safe again. Well, just ask your brown and black students and your Asian students, ask them what really makes them feel safe. Does having more cops on campus, makes them feel safe, because at least this is the case with my district, but it does not. In fact, my district I know this is not the same as my district, but my district spent $1 in $6 on mental health, on policing, and I do not want that for ESUHSD, especially not for my friends and for the others. And I know that Independence High School does not speak for the rest of the campuses on ESUHSD. So please do not believe the reactionary parents here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jessica Gutierrez, you have 2 minutes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello, my name is Jessica Gutierrez, and I'm a teacher at James Lake High School. I'm speaking today with deep hurt and frustration that there are folks organizing to bring SROs back to our campuses. I felt proud to work for a district that took the lead in 2020 to end our contracts with SJPD, and I'm disappointed to hear there are people that think that police are the solution for safety concerns. Carceral solutions are not what students in the community need. I understand that there are staff and students that feel unsafe, and I'm not here to invalidate those concerns. The behavior issues we're witnessing with students this year are not unique to our district. With that, we have also seen a huge increase in apathy and lack of motivation, and this has been seen as a pattern across the country. These behaviors reflect the trauma and impacts of the pandemic. Many students experienced death of loved ones, houselessness, lack of care due to having frontline worker parents, and even the inability to find refuge at school from the chaos of home. The Eastside San Jose community is the worst hit by COVID cases and deaths in Santa Clara County. As adults with life experience and tools to adapt, we've still struggled to transition to a post-pandemic world. So imagine how our students are coping. Bringing police back will not resolve the systemic issues that are the root of these behaviors. In fact, police do not prevent violence, they react to situations and are known to escalate them. Cases of Anthony Nunez, Keon Green, Jacob Dominguez, and Antonio Guzman Lopez are a few examples of countless acts of violence by SJPD. Let's continue the direction toward more equitable communities. Let's put our money where our mouth is, funding mental health services, special ed, and extracurriculars that keep students engaged and involved. Let's train educators on de-escalation, bias, and social justice issues. Let's build a safety committee of community members that can come up with lasting, meaningful solutions. Police don't.
Thank you very much for your comments. Your time is up.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Rachel Stanek. I'm going to have to promote you to a panelist to be able to allow you to speak. So give me a second. Hey, Rachel Stanek, if you would unmute, you have 2 minutes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Megan Adams. I'm a first-year teacher at Independence High School. There's been a lot of comments said today about the safety of our students and staff at Independence and in the district. I just want to say that I am not for police officers on campus, but there has to be some response from the district. I teach special education, and I have had multiple students on my caseload that have been jumped. And they can no longer come to school. They've transferred schools or on independent studies, and they're missing out on their education. There just needs to be more support for our staff. Like one of my colleagues said today at Independence, we have 3 advisors who are being constantly harassed and assaulted on campus, along with teachers and students alike. I don't think there's one approach to this. It has to be a multifaceted approach, but we just need some more support and some solutions and some actions from the district in order for us to solve this problem. Thank you.
Try one more time. R. Stanek. Okay, Board President, that's the
Okay,
comment virtual.
Thank you. We have one last speaker, Mr. Jack Hamner in this item.
We still have.
Oh, we have online.
Would you like to do that first, or
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Hammer? Okay, online public comment from Nancy Tran, student.
Bathrooms, no soap, no seat covers, no napkins to dry hands. Hand dryers don't work. Bathrooms are usually locked. Need more custodians, and sometimes sinks do not work. Police on school property, students and staff feel unsafe. They shouldn't be armed with weapons, guns, tasers, etc. Next public comment. Hold on, please. From Martha Street Art Night. It's a community member. We demand that ESUHSD continue to keep SROs, cops out of schools. Bringing cops back won't repair trauma, solve systemic issues, or prevent fights. Instead, it'll lead to students being profiled, led into the carceral system, and put at risk. SJPD have shot over 60 people in the last 20 years, most recently Quan Green. The pandemic exacerbated existing traumas of our community. Our students experienced death of loved ones, houselessness, lack of attention due to caregivers that are frontline workers, all while navigating challenges of adolescence. The ESSJ community is also the worst hit by COVID cases and deaths in the county. As adults, we have more life experience and tools to process and adapt. Imagine what they are feeling right now as youth. Are they being cared for, housed, fed, heard, loved? There's more to our students than the labels put on them. They are whole human beings that deserve dignity and the right to be at a school to learn and connect in a safe and nurturing environment. Next public comment is from Jessica Terrace. She spoke online. So let me go to, I have Amy Betrell, staff member. I'm a teacher at Independence, and I've been here for over 10 years. I have never experienced anything remotely like the chronic chaos that has been this year. I hold our CO5 discipline and security staff in high regard as they make what we do in the classroom possible. They are under a daily deluge and assault that is impossible to keep up with, and their efforts have been made futile given the current board policies. When there are no real consequences for students' misbehavior, then all is lost. There's a small group of never-do-wells that are holding the rest of us hostage. It's becoming a delightful game to them to see what havoc they can wreak today, and with no real consequences. Why not? Students have no fear of repercussions, and that is evident by the emboldened behaviors they exhibit. I implore you to reconsider the decision to remove the resource officers from our campuses and reinstate in-house suspension at the very least. Next public comment is, scroll. Alberto Camacho. Bringing police back onto the campuses of the East Side is a ludicrous idea. We cannot take a step forward as a community only to take 3 steps back. Cops are not the answer. They do not provide any form of safety. What they do bring is a presence of violence and fear. Just like military recruiters, they violently harass students of color, specifically and historically our Black and brown students. The research is out there. Bring in counselors, mental health specialists, programs of academic engagement. Let us use those funds to uplift and help our communities instead of using them to violently harass and belittle our youth. They are our future, and we cannot prevent them from achieving big things. This unexpected behavior is a derivative of the pandemic. We shouldn't seek for more forms of punishment. These kids need stability, support, and positive resolutions, and we can provide that if we choose to work with the youth that has been heavily affected by the pandemic. Next public comment is from Lizette Castillo, community member. The presence of police on campus will not do anything to promote opportunities for successes to all students. Students of color are the most affected by cops on campus. Their kid behavior is often criminalized, whereas other students, primarily of a lighter skin tone, can get away with acts of violence as a means of still developing. Cops on campus will only ensure that the school to prison pipeline continues. There will be no equity and there will be no justice for these students who constantly get criminalized and looked at less. We do not need cops. We need teachers to pay attention and to consciously teach. Next public comment from Jacob Benitez, staff member. As an Eastside alum, educator, and resident, I can say with absolute certainty that SROs have not and are not an effective resource for addressing student behavior. As an educator, I know that there is not a single valid statistic which supports the notion that SROs keep students safe. There's not a single valid statistic which supports the notion that SROs prevent crime or reduce on-campus violence. In fact, the opposite is true. I am disappointed that some of my fellow educators continue to eschew the facts and community care out of fear. SROs did not prevent violence on campuses before COVID, and they are not preventing them after COVID. There is not a single reason to think that this time will be different. In fact, SJPD has shown how dedicated they are to student safety with their retaliatory cancellation of the Guardian program. Our students demand better of us, and it is the responsibility of ESTA and our district leadership to come together to resolve this issue without police. Next public comment is from, please, Serena Tran, student. My name is Serena Tran. I am a sophomore at Overfeld High School and a leader at CFJ. My issue today is the response to the sexual assault incidents at Eastside. This is important because to me, it's not fair to treat the victims as if they're not important. I wanted protection as well as many other people, but I am unsure who I can trust. We've preached student safety, yet the measures haven't been met for so long. As a result, it's an indirect contribution to victims staying silent because who would be there for them? An indirect contribution to victims staying, as a result, it's, hold on, please. I wanted protection. Let's see, I think I read that part. We've preached student safety, yet the measures haven't been met for so long. As a result, it's an indirect contribution to victims staying silent because who would be there for them, especially when they're supposed to. I'm concerned about the demand to bring police officers back on campus. This will not make students safe because some police can't escape their savage nature and commit assault on whoever they feel like. Urge the board members and superintendent to immediately conceive a task force or process for us students to design our own system for safety at school. We should be the ones to decide what makes us safe. Thank you for your time. Next public comment is from Lupe Navarro from CFJ. My name is Lupe Navarro, a James Lick High School alumni and organizer with CFJ. It has come to my attention that there has been discussion around bringing SROs back on campus as a response to the sexual assault and violence that has taken place. With this, I asked to revisit Resolution 2019-2020-42, which has a clear commitment of eliminating SROs from campuses and reviewing the curriculum and training regarding sexual harassment of dating violence. All commitments our community and students have felt have not been successfully fulfilled. I urge you to adequately fund and support mental health professionals who are specifically trained to provide resources and interventions to students facing adverse experiences. Our traditional discipline practices need to be replaced with restorative justice programs, which in turn will decrease violence and improve school culture, instead of increasing fear among students. It's time to learn their needs and provide clear solutions and resources. Next public comment is from Arabella Espinoza, community member. We demand that ESUHSD continue to keep SROs cops out of school. Bringing cops back won't repair trauma, solve systemic issues, or prevent fights. Instead, it'll lead to students being profiled, led into the carceral system, and put at risk. SJPD have shot over 60 people in the last 20 years, most recently Quan Green. The pandemic has exacerbated existing traumas of our community. Our students experience death of loved ones, houselessness, lack of attention due to caregivers that are frontline workers, all while navigating challenges of adolescence. The ESSJ community is also the worst hit by COVID cases and deaths in the county. As adults, we're having more life experiences and tools to process and adapt. Imagine what they're feeling right now as youth. Are they being cared for, housed, fed, heard, loved? There's more to our students than the labels put on them. They are whole human beings that deserve dignity and the right to be at school and learn and connect in a safe and nurturing environment. Next public comment is from Vivian Lay, student. Do not bring SROs back onto school campuses. Students do not need the heavy presence of SJPD at a place where they should feel safe. Next public comment is from a parent, no name indicated. But I believe it's a student because the comment reads, as a student here at Independence High School, there have been many men who have made me uncomfortable or my friends uncomfortable by their comments or touch. It was a surprise to witness and experience these gestures because I thought I'd feel safe at school. Although the learning environment is enjoyable, I sometimes feel uncomfortable near male students. I've been catcalled, touched without permission, consent, and harassed online from students here. An excuse that is commonly given is that they don't know their actions was wrong. To fix this, please have all students learn about consent and the importance of it. How to read someone's body language when they are uncomfortable. Little lessons like these can help others and create a safe environment. Next public comment is from staff member Charles Fowler. The work being done to handle disciplinary safety is not enough to make all parts of community, school, teachers, admin feel safe and supported. We need to be reminded that the call to change was due to a lawsuit by the Office of Civil Rights. If you want to know why Google School District called police on students 1,745 times in single school year in 2016. The discrepancies were made apparent then. We know the reality when police are on campus. It's easier to try to arrest away the problems, but it does not deal with the root cause or even effects of the problems in the school community. In response to the lawsuit, for a few years, we cut suspensions, expulsions, police problems in the school referrals to show improvement, but did not do enough to train teachers and support them in social, emotional learning, restorative justice, and de-escalation. But this year, post-pandemic, you expect teachers to be counselors, therapists, teachers, with zero overall plan for our teachers, social workers, or advisors. We still have more public comment. Next public comment is from Daniel Benitez, community member. I do not believe having police SROs on campus will do anything to make students feel safer. Having attended and graduated from Silver Creek High School, I saw firsthand how SROs would racially profile students. It happened to my brother. Did not prevent fights or on-campus assaults, and in general stood around and did nothing. Bringing police back on campus will only serve to exacerbate the issues of our young people are facing, and is quite frankly a waste of money. Our young people and the community at large would benefit more from giving students access to counselors and resources that actually help them than paying for what has proven to be an ineffective solution. As a member of the community and an East Side resident, I strongly implore you to say no to bringing police back to campus. Next public comment is from Jacqueline Pham, student. Hello, my name is Jacqueline and I'm a junior at Evergreen Valley. In light of the student responses to the district's handling of sexual assault allegations, I want to reiterate the importance of implementing survivor-centered and straying away from partial approaches that have been used in the past. We work to support survivors through creating spaces for student voice, providing counseling and mental health resources, and fostering community through discussion. Our goal is to create a space where all students feel supported in learning and working with institutions that have been historically oppressive towards BIPOC communities creates an atmosphere where students feel unsafe. 2 years ago, our district made a promise to prioritize student well-being with the goal of increasing equity within our community. I urge you to continue creating spaces for student input and investing in survivor-centered resources. Thank you for your time. Next public comment is from Emily Law, staff member. Please keep school resource officers off our campus. Bringing SROs back to our campuses will only create a school climate of trauma, harm, and violence for many of our students of color. Instead, funding should be allocated to hiring additional advisors, implementing restorative practices, and improving and providing de-escalation training for staff. Next public comment is from John Bischoffberger, staff member. This year, my students are uneasy about visiting bathrooms during passing periods. Many girls mentioned that boys have been in the girls' bathrooms. Instances of violence that I've witnessed are not spontaneous or one-to-one groups of kids singled out and attacked another student. Vandalism and heavy drug use are prevalent. Random acts of thoughtlessness and violence occur during class. A kid passing by my door threw a water bottle into my room during class and hit a girl with it. My colleagues have experienced similar situations and issues of defiance. As the second largest campus footprint in the state, we need more personnel keeping campus safe. Campus safety representatives express that we are short-handed and unable to respond to all incidents as a result. The homeless encampment across our baseball field prevents us from keeping trespassers off our campus. All of these factors detract from our ability to provide a safe environment for kids to learn and grow. Next public comment is from Rachel De La Junta. Dear board member, my name is Rachel De La Junta, math teacher at Yuba Buena High School. I acknowledge the intensity of student behavior issues we see across our campuses exacerbated by a pandemic. Student need for mental health services and access to adults equipped with restorative practices is at an all-time high. It is my view that we should not reinstate SROs, police officers on our campuses. Let's act swiftly to get schools the resources they need to support our students. Additional advisors, mental health counselors, and restorative trainings for teachers are a way to start. To paraphrase a community member on this issue, schools that center building community with students, prioritize mental health, and collaborate to support students that need the most attention will see fewer behavior issues. Reinstating SROs is a reactive, non-solution to the issues our students are facing. Thank you for your time and consideration, Rachel. Next public comment is from staff member Victoria Duran. Do not invest in police on school campuses when policing does not address the root of the problem. Police represent state-sanctioned violence and police brutality, racial profiling. Supporting SROs would continue divestment from education services and continue funding the school to prison nexus that criminalizes young Blacks, Indigenous, and Brown children. Do not fund an already overfunded SJPD when SRO police officers would receive added taxpayer dollars at the expense of our students. Students need resources and services of social, emotional wellness. COVID-19 disproportionality impacts impoverished working class families of San Jose, and it particularly targets Black, Indigenous, and families of color. I am advocating for police-free schools and ensuring that schools do not become sites of criminalizing young children, particularly Black, Latino children. This has been under investigation in our district. Working class families continue to be at the front lines, instead should be at the center of care. Next public comment is from Michael Wood, staff member. Students lost 2 years of developmental opportunities during, oh,
Ms. Guillen.
thank you, I appreciate that. Let me write that down. Let's see who else we have. I have two submissions, but I can only read one from parent Gemma Jamanen because it exceeds the limit. So I'll read the first one. This is from parent Gemma Jamanen. I'm a parent of a student in ESUHSD. My son was a victim of violence on campus, January 25th, 2022. My son was attacked by a group of kids. This group of kids are known for attacking, jumping, robbing, hanging out in bathrooms, drinking alcohol, and doing drugs. My son was outnumbered and was jumped along with a few of his friends. These kids are the same kids that jumped my nephew, Jalen, November 23rd, 2021. He was outnumbered 9-1. Both videos are also circulating online. To this date, no action plan was provided, and I transferred my son to a smaller campus. There has been an uptick of violence on campus before, during, and after school. I am scared for safety and for things there's no coming back from. As an Independence High School alumni, I know how big the school is and how hard it is to monitor all students. I know my son isn't the best model student, but he should have the opportunity to experience a safe school environment, to find himself and learn to prepare himself for his future. I would like to advocate for my son. Did we do Dan Penalosa? Let me see who else I have. I have Rithika Ramesh, student. Students do not want cops on campus. Please don't let some people at Independence speak for the entire district. Any form of police will make us uncomfortable. Disproportionality for students of color, SROs or SJPD. Training doesn't change that at all. Furthermore, if SROs are not trained as cops, how are they supposed to resolve assault cases involving people outside of the school? The school needs to focus on fixing these issues internally rather than bringing cops in as a reactive measure. I personally would never want to build a relationship with these people. Students don't feel safe for a multitude of reasons, specifically with your response to sexual assault. Please fix that as well. Next public comment is, and this is the last one for online. Nope, that's it. That takes care of it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Superintendent, do you have any others?
No.
Okay, then Mr. Jack Hamner, you're the last speaker under item 10 of the agenda.
Board President, we do have one that just snuck in. Can I read
Okay,
that one? It's
go
really
ahead and
short.
read it.
Okay.
Come on up front, please, Mr. Hamner.
It's gonna form this. Public comment from Yvonne Gunther, staff member. I appreciate the confidence in the social workers. However, we are not miracle workers. SROs and mental health support are not mutually exclusive. I can't do my job without first ensuring the safety of everyone on campus. That is the end of online.
Thank you. Mr. Jack Hamner, as president of the Eastside Teachers Association, has up to 5 minutes to speak.
Thank you. I appreciate that. First of all, good evening. Thanks for allowing me to speak. I just wanted to say that I want to thank Randy Phelps for the work that he's done. The inclusion that we have with teachers in establishing processes of what we're doing with our district is amazing. Also, thanks to Teresa Marquez, who is for also doing the same as far as inclusion and allowing us to sit down and discuss things for academics and safety on campus and all of that stuff. So full disclaimer here, I am not expressing any opinion and I am not evaluating or praising or criticizing anybody. This is just information that I have from a survey of over 500 and about 550 teachers. The survey is still ongoing, but when I extracted the data, there's a lot of things that have been happening on the campus. And I know some of you have been out there, and the strange part is that when some of you have been out there, there have been fires and fights and 911 calls. So, hey, you're welcome to the show. We did have 50%, more than 50% of the teachers had 16 or more years of experience that took this survey. 80% of them say that student behavior is worse than there was in 2019 and 2020. About 62% also feel that it's less safe than it was in 1920, which is the last time we were in a school year before COVID. The one that really is kind of disturbing to me that jumps out is 14% of people have claimed that they have been attacked, assaulted, or physically threatened by a student. And 14% might sound a little small, but that's according to our survey, it's about 71 people. So, why don't you come on campus and hang out for a day? Maybe you could be 72 and you'd see what it's like, because that's not a good feeling to have when that kind of 71 is a lot of people in my mind. Okay. Furthermore, 77% of the hottest topic of our teachers either somewhat supported or strongly supported SROs being on campus. On a good note, though, 70% of our teachers say that they can make contact very easily with the discipline team when an emergency arises, which is great. 65% of our teachers were also comfortable expressing their views on safety with administrators, which is also a good thing. And maybe one thing that we need a little bit of work on was 70% of our teachers do not feel that administrators use effective consequences in response to student behavior. There's definitely more to the survey than that, and I did send it all to you for your viewing pleasure. The survey is still ongoing, but the bottom line here is COVID, not COVID. It's an increase in issues, and I just want to feel like our kids and our teachers feel safer in class and on campus. And I don't know if we have that yet. And we keep talking about what we're going to do. And I just don't think that there has been enough done yet. And you can hear it from here. You know, whether SROs are the answer or not, I don't know. And that's for you to decide what we're going to do. But whether they are or not, I don't think it's going to solve everything. But the question becomes, at what point are we going to really buckle down and do something? And just adding this or adding that, or we haven't seen it yet, you know, reaching out to kids that are struggling. And me and Teresa have talked about that. I mean, we got to start talking to these kids that are having attendance issues and discipline issues and fight issues, and finding out what the heck is going on and what we can do to support them instead of just suspending them for a day and then bringing them back. It doesn't do any good. So I hope you can think about all this. There's been tons of great comments, lots of people. It's fantastic that everybody's here tonight, public comments, parents, students, teachers. But I think the bottom line is you all, we, because we do it together, we've got to do something more and soon. It just seems to me like we continue to talk about it and nothing's getting done. And we're more than happy to help provide input and help get those plans in place. But please, let's get safety heightened a little bit so we're having people feel safe about working and being at school. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hamner. This is an item that is not on the agenda and cannot be discussed by the board. But on behalf of the board, I want to appreciate that folks showed up in person to speak, to let us both hear you and feel you, and that people showed up online to be a part of a pretty passionate and even intense discussion. I have to say that I'm listening kind of through two lenses, and one is just human being to human being. I feel people when they're expressing, you know, the pain, the just how things have gotten so extreme. And I also am listening as a policymaker, kind of dispassionately. And there are policy issues that are worthy of more discussion as opposed to no discussion. And I'll say, for example, that in my current understanding, the post-pandemic return to campus has presented circumstances that simply are somewhat unique, you know, in what it's causing. The incidents on campus, Independence High School, foremost among them, are at a higher frequency, greater escalation, greater levels of unsafety and outright danger. And the what more can be done or what should be revisited in the policy framework are legitimate questions for the board to deal with on a policy level. And I've taken the approach of visiting school sites that have asked me to visit, and Independence did ask, and I did go twice. But I've taken an approach up until now to simply stand back and allow the administration to provide leadership from the district level, from the site level, especially because the board has a great deal of confidence in our district leadership and our site leadership. We've got people who are so experienced, who've been principals, who know what these kinds of issues are like. And so I've chosen to step back and allow that leadership to be anchored purely on the administration. Having said that, I recognize from my many years on the board, when something basically is going to keep percolating, is not going to subside, is going to get more intense, and that the board at some point, and to me, the presentations tonight and the comments tonight signal to me that the time has come for the board to join the conversation and to anchor the conversation. The issues that would be on the table have to do with the distinction between traditional police officers on campus versus the newer model of resource officers, school resource officers. Is there validity to that distinction? And certainly to acknowledge so much other data that shows why police officers have net in the past not have cost more than they've provided in terms of campus environment and so on. There's, yeah. So I am going to be calling for the board to convene a focus group session to have more dialogue as opposed to 2-minute comments. We know how to structure these focus groups where we have representative voices at the table and we can have thoughtful exchanges and go more deeply into it and reaffirm the policy framework in place or tweak it or do something more innovative. But rather, I think that's the appropriate way for the board to proceed rather than to stay disengaged on the conversation. It is rippling across this district and it's most intensive over, I'm sorry, we're not taking comments from the audience. So that's it, folks. I've actually said more than I should have in terms of an item that cannot be discussed. But we appreciate you for being here tonight. Now we're going to proceed with our agenda. I'm actually going to call a 5-minute break here. I certainly need a break in the moment. So thank you for being here tonight and we'll proceed after. We're going to resume the meeting. A whole lot of people. All right, thank you very much, folks. If you can all take your seat, we're going to proceed with item 11 on the agenda, 1101, on action regarding update on the novel coronavirus. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you. This is a standard item, but tonight we will be, as far as the presentation, but we will have to take action in extending the resolution to hold virtual meetings. And so we'll do that subsequent to the presentation. Spoiler alert, in our area, is a slight uptick in COVID cases, but like we do, we'll show what it was last time we presented, where we are, because this is part of our monitoring and making sure that we continue to make the right decisions for the safety and well-being of our community. Last time we met, the 7-day rolling average for new cases for coronavirus was 183. It's currently ticked up to 323. Now, I want to recognize that uptick, but I also want to recognize where we were in January of 2022 when we were at 6,487. So we did, in our areas, we did have vacationing in the last 2 weeks across our school systems in our area. And so we have seen an uptick in travel and also an uptick in cases, but nothing that has prompted any new guideline or suggestion. Last time we were together, we looked at the cumulative. Let's remember, this is cumulative. This is not weekly. This is not monthly cumulative. The deaths related to COVID-19, we were at 2,228. Currently, we're at 2,251 a month later. But as you can also see, well, each of those cases matter. Obviously, we could still see a steady decline in deaths related to COVID, even though we have seen an uptick in people with infected COVID, but the death rate has not risen in the same way. This is the multicolor one. This is where we were last time. This talks about terms of vaccination for our residents aged 5 and above. Great that we were able to get the vaccine to our elementary age students. Earlier this year, we were at 90.7 previously. We're now at 91.1, so that just continues to tick up slowly, and this is countywide. This is the one that we have our recommendation always to get vaccinated. This is the COVID rates. This is a 7-day average per 1,000 residents of people that are contacted the coronavirus, as to whether or not they were unvaccinated or fully vaccinated. And we can see the difference in rates last time. And we have seen an uptick in cases, so we expect the overall case rate to go up. It has 16 to 7, but that constant seems to be that if you are vaccinated, you run a lower risk of contracting the virus. What we were really celebrating pre-spring break was we saw levels of about 4 and 24 across the nearly 24,000 people within our system, 23,000 people within our system, staff and students. It's ticked up to 24 and 66, but not at levels that previous levels that we were seeing at the peak of the virus. We're at about 1.1% for staff and 0.3%. So this is data that we do see an uptick in. It's important for us to continue to encourage our folks to vaccinate, but equally important, and just rest assured that our ongoing safety measures still will take place. We'll continue to test, we'll continue to distribute and make masks available. We'll follow the notification guidelines. We'll make sure that we have the proper ventilation and air filters in place. We'll honor the agreements as they move through. And also just want to always remind people that for folks feeling like they need some help, that's help in terms of maintaining mental health and wellness, that there are supports for them. Our field trip process has been in place. We've had a number of trips now out of state and also overnight, and following those guidelines appropriately. And we haven't really seen a case where a group has come back and seen a lot of positive cases. So we're going to continue to keep our eye on these things, but we're not seeing any sharp spikes or cases across our district in terms of high levels of testing positive. So our next steps, again, continue to make testing available for staff and students, make sure we locate and provide the masks and other PPE. And I think we're in that critical phase now of just monitoring the guidelines, new variants, and our data. But right now, we continue to see that the safety efforts of our entire community appear to be working. And we can start seeing, when we went to optional, the level of masking was quite high. We still see it within our schools quite high. Starting to see some people when they're outside or making other choices. But want to thank our community for, again, working together to get through this phenomenon. That's my presentation, unless you have any other questions. If not, then what I'd like to ask is that the board take action.
Authorizing remote teleconference meetings through June 1, 2022.
That is exactly right.
Need a motion, members of
For
the board?
approval.
Okay.
Whoever you
Moved by Lay, seconded by Doe. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh,
Excuse me,
yes.
our student board
No.
representative.
Yeah,
How
I
do
want to
you
let,
vote?
I want to let you know that Angela, when communicated to me that she wasn't feeling well, she'd be leaving.
Okay, she has left the
Okay.
meeting. Thank you. Members of the board, you voted unanimously. Right, we took the vote, right? Okay, all right, thank you very much. That passed unanimously. Moving on to item 12.01 regarding 2-year extension addendums, MOUs with the district authorized charter schools.
This is basically a result of the coronavirus and distance learning and changes in this, and that there's been some changes and or some recommendations by the state that we have to adjust to. It's a pretty standard item, but we are gonna ask Kirsten to present on the issue, just as a reminder for all of us that maybe don't this really about the charter schools that we authorize and where we are in our relationship with them and our role in working with them. So thank you, Kirsten.
All right, good evening. My name is Kirsten King. I'm the Director of Assessment and Accountability. And I come to you tonight, as Glenn said, just to explain to you why we are asking you to approve 2-year term extensions to the operational MOUs for the charter schools that we authorize. Well, 8 out of the 9 charter schools that we authorize. So that's just a reminder to the list of the 9 schools that we are currently authorizing in the Eastside Union High School District. They normally have a 5-year term, and we enter into operational MOUs with those charter schools that, dictates how we relate to one another, what we do with dispute, how we're going to handle special education, the timelines for budget reporting, all that stuff is in those operational MOUs, and just wanted to reiterate that these are not the facilities use agreements. Oftentimes when you hear charter school MOUs, the first thing people think of is facility use agreement MOUs that we have in place. These are not those. We do these with each of our charter schools. Typically at the time of first authorizing or for renewal. Last year, Ed Code changed on July 1st, 2021, as Glenn said, because of COVID. And the majority of charter schools were then all of a sudden qualified to have a 2-year extension to the term of their charter. So instead of 5 years, they turned into 7-year terms. If the charter term expired between the date specified up there, so between January 1st, 2022 and June 30th, 2025, then they automatically had the term of their charter extended by 2 years. So for us, 8 of our schools did and 1 didn't. So Latino College Preparatory Academy did not because they just renewed in the 2021 school year. You probably remember that. So they're the ones that didn't qualify. And so Eastside typically has an operational MOU that extends the entire length of the charter term. So now we want to extend the operational MOUs by 2 years so that it matches the terms of the charters for all of our charters except for LCPA. And in item 18.07 under the consent calendar, you may notice there are 2 operational MOUs, one for Alpha, one for LCPA. The 2-year extension is already included in the Alpha MOU that you see in the consent calendar. And the LCPA is just a standard 5-year term because that's all. So administration is requesting that the board approve the 2-year term extensions to the MOUs, the operational MOUs listed in this board item.
I'm sorry, just a quick clarified question. So by operational, do you mean facilities or that's something else? So help me understand. So there's the charter itself, because we approved their petition, right? So what's the operational MOU?
So the operational MOU is what authorizers enter into with the charter schools that they authorize that dictates how we operate together. So what our relationship is, how special education will occur. Charter schools have options of going through the district for special education services.
I got it.
All
Okay.
that stuff.
Yeah. And this is all Ed Code anyway, right?
Most of it is based in Ed Code, but the MOU is there to discuss the pieces that aren't explicit.
But this request is coming, this is out of
Absolutely.
Ed Code. Okay, yeah. So I'm fine.
Moved by Doe, seconded by Chavez. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, passes unanimously. And on to item 12.02, the third quarterly Williams Settlement Uniform Complaint Report. Ms. Marquez.
This is a standard item that's being brought forth for approval. Just to note, we did have 4 complaints and you could see the responses within the documentation attached.
Okay.
Approve.
Moved by Cortese, seconded by,
Have to approve because
No.
just so receive.
does this require a vote?
No, you're just receiving the,
Okay, all right. And the motion is withdrawn and you're not taking any action on that. Item 13.01, approve contracts for services over 25,000. Motion, please.
move for approval.
Moved by Chavez, second by Doe. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, it passes unanimously. Item 14.01, proposed revisions to certificate of job description of school social worker.
Move to approve.
Moved by Cortese, second by Lay. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, abstentions, passes unanimously. We're under the consent calendar with the exception of 18.
We have to facilities on 1501 through 1505.
Oh. Oh, okay. 15.01, I got lost on the wrong page. 15.01 for bond capital projects over 50,000.
Second,
Moved by Joe, seconded by Lizzie. We're not here, I don't know. All in favor, please say aye.
aye.
Opposed?
Yes, we have public comment for 1701.
This is 1501.
This is 1501. 15.02, planned increment 2 and amendment 1 for all construction student union project. If there's members of the board, questions or a motion? Moved by Doe, seconded by Lay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously. 15.04, action discussion.
3, please.
3, I'm on 50.03, approve the design build services RFP for Independence High School substation on underground. Heating.
A second,
Moved by Cortese, seconded by Doe.
other way around.
I heard you first before he was louder, but you were first. Moved by Cortese, seconded by Doe. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, abstentions, passes unanimously. 4, approved design build services RFP.
Move for approval.
I'm going to say moved by Lay and seconded by Doe. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, passes unanimously. 15.05, approved design build services RFP for yearbook Renaissance Field improvement project. Moved by Doe,
Yeah.
second by Chavez. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention passes unanimously. On to the consent calendar for every item, but the one we have already.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we acted on 18.07 already, so when we do a motion here, it does not include 18.07. We've taken care of that. And there is a
Public
comment,
comment on 1701.
1701. So then, members of the board, we can pull 1701 and take a motion for approval of the rest of the consent calendar, and then we'll hear 17. Yeah. Yeah, it has to be pulled if it's going to be common.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. So, I
I
need a
move to
motion for the
approve-
rest of the,
Move to approve the consent calendar minus 1701 and 1806.
that's correct. Moved by Cortese, seconded by Doe. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, passes unanimously. We're now going to hear item 17.01 of the consent calendar, and Ms. Marquez is on.
Is a
school
standard
field
item for
trips.
field trips, but there is a public comment by a student, which Ms. Guillen will read at the moment. Public comment from student Jessica Nguyen. I am Jessica Nguyen, a freshman at Independence High School. My request is that more classes, especially academies and science-related classes, should be able or be allowed to go to proper locations for field trips more often. I know it is high school and many expect not to go on field trips, but I think even if it is high school, we should still be allowed to have field trips for both educational purposes and for entertainment purposes. Field trips could also leave a chance for teachers to relax a bit and maybe release some stress even. STEAM Academy typically have guest speakers come and talk or for a lecture or lesson sometimes, but instead, maybe going on a field trip could save some time, especially for the guests. Business and Finance Academy usually have mock interviews, which can possibly take place in an actual nearby office to set the scene properly for students to learn what an actual interview feels like and get experience beforehand. That is the end of public comment under 1701.
Okay, so then a motion on this item. Moved by Doe and seconded by Lay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to thank the student for weighing in on this issue. We appreciate hearing from you always.
Yes. The consent calendar has been approved. We're on to item 21, written reports and recommendations. And under this part of the agenda, they simply transmit the reports. And if we want them brought back for discussion, we can request that. Otherwise, we are receiving the 2022-2023 school safety plan goals document. Okay. So item 22, future agenda items. Members of the board. Hearing none, I'm going to proceed. But it's not for the administration to do. These are things for the administration to do. But I'll say it in my board comments.
Yeah, the title of the group is escaping me. The Student Equity Councils, is that what they're called?
We do have a group of students called Student Equity Councils across our school sites who are receiving training this year. Yes.
Okay, yeah, so they're starting to receive training and starting to set their goals and strategies for this upcoming year. I got a little excerpt on that and I thought it was really fascinating and powerful. So I'm wondering if we can do a presentation to learn more about the work.
Actually, we have it scheduled already. And so we have a couple of students and teachers who are going to be coming in. I believe it's at the May 19th board meeting.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Okay. Then we move on to board comments, right? Pages to get through. Okay, item 23, 23.01 board comments. I'm going to begin to my left with member Doe. Okay, and Vice President Chavez.
Yes, so I'll be brief. I just, a lot of appreciation for tonight and the community coming out and just speaking their voice, speaking what is top of mind, top of heart. I think that's really important. So I was glad to have community present today. I also wanted to share that April 30th, there's a tradition, I think it's all Latin America, where they celebrate our children, Dia del Niño, Dia de los Niños. We are a high school district, but I still consider all of our students our children. And so I just want to make sure that we take a moment to honor them because they're children. So that's this Saturday. So Feliz Dia de los Niños to all of our students out there.
Dia de los Niños. Thank you. And Member Cortez.
Just ditto to about gratitude for the community showing up. It's a item 10, so I can't say a lot other than I am moved. You're all sides of the issue. Like I just am present to what people are dealing with. Holding that tonight.
Member Lay.
I also want to say thank you to all teachers, staff, and parents and student comments tonight about safety. And I think that's something that is really dear to my heart also. And I want to say that we're looking forward to see some of you, if you have time, drop by YB tomorrow at 11:30. We have a flag ceremony. Yeah, we have flag ceremony tomorrow. And I forgot to say thank you, Linda Ornelas, that helped out, send out this marketing piece from Eastside to the community for the flag raising ceremony.
Thank you. And then for my comments, I just want to say with my long experience on this board, I just recognize certain points in the process and how some dynamics, begin to develop or evolve at a site, across the district, to the district office. And I think it'll be costly for this board to listen and not engage, to essentially defer the conversation only between administration and site leaders, because there are points being made that require a deeper listening and more thoughtful exchange than is available in the format that people have so far. There have been opportunities for individual board members to be in thoughtful conversations, but there hasn't been an opportunity for the board as a board to educate itself and truly understand deeper dimensions. And I think it is time to revisit the policy framework in place and to reaffirm it or tweak it or evolve it further. In some way, though, take ownership at the board level for the way that we believe we ought to be, responding to the current realities. At the end of the day, if people feel like they have been truly understood, that an authentic dialogue took place, that different understandings came forth and the board understood them, at the end of the day, that feels honoring to people, even if they are disappointed in whatever the outcome is. But this has been going for months, and it's only gotten more intense, and it's only expanded. So I just think it's time for the board to have, essentially a study session with the focus group format, sitting around the table with representative stakeholders where people can observe the discussion and later come to the microphone and add comments. But basically the substance of the interaction will be between the board in a roundtable discussion with a representative group of stakeholders for how this is currently being understood and what the board is actually, as a board, upholding. So I'm not asking for a decision because we can't discuss that. Can we discuss something like that to schedule a meeting?
I think in our one-to-one, as we can discuss the sequencing of that and do that, set it for a future time.
Okay, so you can express your thoughts about this to the superintendent. And I'm just advocating for it because I think it's inevitable that we're going to reach that point. It's not going to go away. And for very understandable reasons, not just people being overreactive or over anything. There are actually some policy issues that are in the mix. So thank you. And I'm going to, our student board rep is not, Mr. Superintendent, for your comments.
Well, I want to thank Teresa Marquez and the staff at Independence that met before the break around these issues, where we started to talk about that and ideate some solutions together. And as you know, we are planning the roundtable discussion around school climate and positivity and making sure that people do feel safe and that kids want to be at sites. And there's ways for us to do that. So we're looking forward to finding that outcome together. And I think that's been something that we've been getting increasingly good at Eastside, whether you talk about the student learning systems or talking about board policies, as we just are working together to arrive at the outcome that we want together. And I think that finding the ways to establish this type of welcoming and safe student and staff climate at our sites is an outcome that we can definitely work together to build. And I've just got complete confidence in our system to do that. And for us to meet in the same way, is meet towards a shared outcome, not for one person's perspective to win over the others, but to be informed and be informed by data and informed by what we hear and what we feel, and also what makes a difference, and work together. And I'm pretty confident as a district we're going to be able to do that.
Confident too. And I'm confident in your leadership and the leadership of Ms. Marquez and other members of the team. Okay, so board meeting evaluation 23.04. Okay. And the air is full with meaningful silence. I'm going to interpret that as a general satisfaction with the meeting. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 24.01, legal counsel on closed session items.
There are no reportable closed session actions.
Well, looks like we're at the end of our meeting, and I'm adjourning the meeting now at 9:30 p.m.